So, Sam, I see you're applying for that assistant manager position.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good. Take a seat.
There's no chairs.
Tell me, Sam, what are your qualifications?
Well, I have 6 years of experience in sales at this company, and I recently completed my master's in business management.
Have you ever been in a leadership position?
Yes, I would often assume managerial duties when the branch manager was out of town.
Sam, now tell me, have you ever stolen company property?
No, of course not.
All right. Have you ever poisoned a fellow employee?
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm completely serious, Sam. These are questions I have to ask. Just answer them honestly.
No, I have never poisoned a fellow employee.
Okay, let's see. How are you with customers?
I do very well with customers, in fact.
Have you ever followed one home?
What do you mean?
And waited in their closet until they fell asleep?
Sam,
have you ever performed a sacrificial murder on one of our customers?
No.
Sammy, can I call you Sambo?
I don't.
Have you ever taken a hollowed-out skull and sipped blood from it in the glorious name of Satan?
This is...
Satan! It's Satan!
This is kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
You're right. We're getting off track a little here. Where would you like to see yourself in 5 years?
Are we done with the murder questions?
Sam, if you don't think you can handle the job, we could always hire someone from outside the company.
No. In 5 years, I hope to have taken on more responsibilities here to help the company grow as I grow.
Have you ever played an organ constructed out of human meat?
What?
A meat organ, Sam.
That isn't even possible.
Yes, it is. I've played one. Sounds terrible.
This interview is not going how I imagined it would.
Well, then wrap your mind around this. I have no butt, Sam.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that's right. I have no lower body of any kind. Some people may call me a merman.
Why are you telling me that? Is that why you have no chairs?
Do you believe in ghosts, Sam?
Well,
Angels? Vampires? Tell me, please, are my eyes bleeding? It feels like there is blood dripping out of my eyes. Tell me.
I think this interview is spiraling out of control.
Sam, I need a mermaid for my merman. Why did God take my butt? It wasn't a gradual thing, Sam. My butt just walked off and left.
It's very sad.
Sam, what would you do in this situation? You poop yourself. Would you go home sick?
I don't want the job. I'm leaving.
Sam, wait. There's a sign-on bonus.
Is it a meat organ?
It might be a meat organ.
September 25th, 2022, Politico, Biden's monkeypox advisor, is trying to manage a virus while dodging talks of Satanism. Sitting in a coffee shop a couple of blocks from the White House on Friday afternoon, Dmitry Daskalakis is crying. His iced coffee with almond milk sits on the table, melting and mostly untouched. Geez, I'm not supposed to cry in front of Politico, he laughs. Daskalakis moved back to Washington, D.C. just weeks ago from Atlanta after President Joe Biden brought him on as the monkeypox deputy response coordinator. In a city where bureaucrats wear pretty much the same haircuts and outfits, he sticks out. He's just under 6 foot tall, bald with black glasses. He happily accepts comparisons to a hot, young Stanley Tucci. But increasingly, right-wing critics have painted him as a caricature, far different from the actor who scrolls the Italian countryside in search of mouth-watering meals. Sifting through Daskalakis' Instagram feed, they've plucked out thirst-trapped shirtless posts showing off his tattoos, accusing him of being a Satanist. Daskalakis makes no effort to hide that he's different from the usual government worker. Even today, he shuns the baggy blue suit, opting for black skinny jeans, gray jacket, and red textured tie, and his signature black specs. His tears aren't because he's being targeted by ultra-conservatives, rather they hit him as he explains why he went into public health, recalling that desire he had to focus on HIV and AIDS. It's a desire that eventually brought him to the highest seats of political power, one that, in recent weeks, has put him under intense scrutiny amid criticisms of the administration's monkeypox response. As a kid, he always knew he wanted to be a doctor. Fisher-Price play kid, he muses, but it wasn't until he was an undergraduate at Columbia University that experienced an epiphany. He was working on a big display of the AIDS memorial quilt, he says, and he was tasked with flying to San Francisco to bring back a roll of carpet that looked like a body in a shroud. On the day the exhibit opened for the finished quilt, he watched as men his age, people who should have been enjoying their 20s, walked in, coughing and raging with a disease very likely to kill them. My job is going to be to never let anyone get HIV, or if people have HIV, make sure that they don't get sick and die. It hit me like that, he recalls with a snap of his fingers. For the better part of 20 years, Daskalakis has been doing work in this field, mostly recently as a director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention Division of the HIV/AIDS Prevention, a job he took on the beginning of the administration. Now his role is to take his experiences and lessons learned from fighting communicable diseases and sexually transmitted infections and apply them to the current monkeypox outbreak to help prevent it from becoming the next permanent national health crisis. He and his boss, Robert Fenton, a longtime Federal Emergency and Management Agency official tapped to be the monkeypox czar, took over as the administration was being dinged for its slow response and lag in providing testing and vaccines. Daskalakis says when he got the call about the White House position, he originally didn't want it. "Oh no, not again," was his first thought, he says. "Another thing that's going to pull me away from the reason I'm doing public health." He had just wrapped up years of helping the run of COVID-19 response in New York City, along with managing a meningitis outbreak there. He was tired, and more importantly, he wanted to focus on HIV prevention. Ultimately, the parallels between the initial HIV outbreak and monkeypox, in particular its disproportionate impact on the queer community, made him give the job a second look. "I can't really be upset about being pulled from HIV because if I crack the code to getting young Black and Latino men who have sex with men, gay, bisexual, and transgender folks or gender diversity folks to get the vaccine," he says, trailing off but implying, if he effectively reaches this community, it could be a game changer for HIV prevention too. He says before he started the job, Biden specifically told him he wanted to make sure the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on the LGBT members of color didn't repeat with monkeypox. Daskalakis and Fenton have been credited with the administration for coordinating government efforts across the various health agencies involved in the monkeypox response. They were both among the most ardent voices pushing the administration to declare a public health emergency as soon as possible, something Biden did 3 days after their appointments were reported. The criticisms against the response haven't stopped, though. Greg Gonsalves, a global health activist and epidemiologist at Yale University, praised efforts by Daskalakis and Fenton, but questioned how much power and influence they have to shape the course of this outbreak going forward. "It's not about their personal characteristics, but about the bureaucratic power they have to make change," he said. Daskalakis has used his connections at the CDC, which clashed with the White House and other agencies during the COVID response, to align administration initiatives and track the disease's spread. But his hardest job, senior officials say, has been building trust back within the LGBTQ community, frustrated and scared by the slow response. Dimitri was able to play a significant role where he identified areas of friction, areas where quick improvements could be made to the process and build that trust, Fenton said in an interview. Over the last month, monkeypox rates have slowed and vaccine availability has increased, but also has demand for vaccinations. According to recent CDC data, more than 46,000 doses have been given in 34 states and New York City. That's 14% of the 3.2 million doses needed to fully vaccinate the 1.6 million people the government said are at high risk. But despite pilot programs of using large events to offer jabs last month, the administration is seeing supply overtake demand. The administration faced something similar with COVID-19. Just because the supply was there didn't mean high-risk groups could get their hands on them. But Daskalakis said it's a pattern he has experience dealing with, especially with communities of color. In New York, he was well known for going into bathhouses and sex clubs to conduct STI testing and help educate its patrons. He's not one of those white coat health bobbleheads disconnected from the community and waving your finger at somebody, says Keaton Farrow, the managing director of advocacy and organized at Prep for All in New York. People actually respond to him for that reason. But that has also turned Daskalakis into an easy target for conservative media, which hit him with a barrage of attacks after his appearance at the White House press briefing last week. They include tweets like the one that alleged Joe Biden appointed a Satanist to the White House because of his pentagram tattoo. Another tweet featured a photo of him shirtless and asked, "Seriously?" Many of the images were mined from his Instagram page, which is chock full of shirtless pictures showing off his 30-plus other tattoos. One article that features numerous photos of him said, "Dr. Daskalakis' social media presence reveals a penchant for pentagrams and other satanic symbolism." Daskalakis laughs off the charge. For the record, he confirms he's not a Satanist. "I wish I were that interesting." The National Pulse, September 2022. "We'll steal your soul," Biden's monkeypox spokes has a penchant for pentagrams, occultism, and Satanism. On August 2nd, President Biden appointed Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis as the White House National Monkeypox Response Deputy Coordinator. Also the CDC's Division Director for HIV Prevention. He previously served in Mayor Bill de Blasio's administration in the New York City Health Department. Daskalakis is known for his efforts in the world of HIV and other diseases affecting the LGBTQ+ community, having attended New York University's medical school, followed by a residency, fellowship, and additional master's degree from Harvard Medical School. In an interview with The Atlantic in 2014, he said, "I learned my bedside manner from East Village drag queens." He attended Columbia University as an undergraduate and was a general and religion double major. Raised by Greek Orthodox immigrants in Arlington, Virginia, a review of Dr. Daskalakis' social media presence reveals a penchant for pentagrams and other satanic symbolism, the National Pulse can reveal. Duscalaska's social media presence is disturbing to say the least. Alongside his partner, Michael McNeil, the pair launched a goth gym in New York, which originally ran out of the high-profile Equinox gym chain, before spinning off into its own brand based in a former gay nightclub that had in turn taken over an old church in Manhattan. Monster Cycle. Monster Cycle's social media pages are full of references to Satanism, the devil, burning crosses, and pentagrams, and more. While the gym got fawning coverage in the New York Times, below in 2014, its review on Sweet Concierge made references to alarming imagery and terrifying co-ed locker rooms. There's light even in darkness, McNeil told the New York Post the same year, which correlates directly with a quote tattooed across the chest of Joe Biden's monkeypox coordinator, his partner, Dr. Duscalaskis. I have learned that there is light even in the darkest places, Duscalaskis' tattoo of a pentagram reads. He also has ink showing the corpse of a dead creature as well as a serpent, the head with 3 eyes, and what appears to be a saint-like figure and even a depiction of Jesus Christ across his stomach. It's not the only reference to Christ the pair Duscalaskis and McNeil make in their social media posts. A series of images from 2012 appear to depict a seance, a Ouija board ceremony with a lit crucifix depicting Jesus Christ laying on a pentagram on the table. Another image of the same night shows McNeil with the producer friend Bianca Gray using the Ouija board with the crucifix. Another image from 2011 shows Duscalaskis appearing to mock Christ in the depiction of the Last Supper. Concerning imagery and association hardly stops there. An October 2011 image shows the White House staffer wearing a pentagram helmet with an upside-down cross above it. McNeil, in the background, appears to be wearing a crown of thorns. Further pentagram imagery can be scattered across the Monster Cycle social media pages featuring either of the pair or their friends. A 2014 post on Facebook states, "We'll steal your soul." One of the accounts Duscalaskis follows on Instagram is the Satanic Temple TV, which describes its mission statement as, "We will entertain and challenge, delight, and discuss. We will explore the artistic, political, and transgressive roots of modern Satanism. We will give voice to our diverse communities as Satanists and atheists and social justice activists in a global society." The pair, McNeil and Duscalaskis, also appear to have been married in a dark occult ceremony in 2013. Prior to meeting McNeil, Duscalaskis did not have a plethora of occult tattoos he now sports. A year prior, the pair saw reality drag star Sharon Needles in concert. Needles was found in that year to be using explicitly racist imagery in performances, as well as deploying the N-word freely. At the time, a denial was issued, but others have since expressed similar experiences with Needles, alleging 9/11 jokes as well as frequent use of the N-word. In 2021, Needles was accused of exposing a 15-year-old fan to drugs and alcohol, as well as images of his penis and inappropriate touching. His accuser, Annecy, said the drag queen gave me weed shotguns, pretty much kissed me on the mouth a billion times, later adding, "Beer is gross, Sharon made me try it, and I spat it everywhere." Now, during the monkeypox outbreak, Duscalaskis appeared on MSNBC to describe his attitude to health prevention in the queer community.
I work in HIV normally, and I'll tell you that, I always say that I've never made an HIV diagnosis in someone that hasn't somehow related to stigma. I think Mpox is the same. So really, stigma tends to be a barrier to testing, a barrier to vaccination. And so, really addressing stigma intentionally and making sure that we get the word out in a way that supports people's joy as opposed to, calling them risky. So I think, one of the things to think about is that, one person's idea of risk is another person's idea of a great festival or Friday night, for that matter. So we have to sort of embrace that with joy and make sure that folks know how to keep themselves safe.
Now, Alex, as you're aware, during the COVID times, everyone was definitely saying that one person's idea of risk is another person's idea of joy. Do you remember that mantra? Alex, welcome to the program. If you can find that mute button and join on in.
Yes, of course.
Oh boy,
yeah, no,
I can't hear Alex.
The vibe.
Hang on.
Totally. It was.
Let's see why I can't hear Alex. Alex, keep going.
Are you sure? Yeah, no, that was the vibe. I think the people with the sticks in Germany walking between people, make sure they're 6 feet apart. That was also to make the fun even more enhanced. What's happening, Gator? Am I losing you? Earth to Gator. 1 2 1 2. Anyway, I have so many things to say to tell Gator when he comes back here, including that He's been saying the guy's name wrong all this time.
All right, I can hear everybody now.
All right, are you back?
I'm back. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, do you remember during COVID that was the mantra that everyone's risk can be someone else's joy?
Yeah, that was, I think that was how they were saying it, and definitely no stigma.
Now, since this Daskalakis chap is one of your kin, do you take ownership for his behavior, or?
Absolutely. In fact, I do have a slight pronunciation correction to make. However much you would like his name to be Daskalakis, it's Daskalakis.
I apologize greatly.
I realize you're filling from context here, but
I apologize profusely for my errors, sir.
I mean, sounds like you'd be pretty happy with that one.
Now I've made some microphone adjustments this week, so ideally no one will have complaints. Everyone seems to complain in some direction on every single thing, but I think I have gotten the sweet spot, sir. Now you can tell me if I'm wrong already.
Well, yeah, I think you need much more than microphone adjustments to make sure nobody complains.
Okay, well, that might be true.
Weapons, for example. Anyway, yeah, but yeah, it's it looks like a fascinating chap. He's seems to be part of that group with the other guy who was stealing baggage.
Yes.
So I mean,
Yeah,
I gotta say, like
Binton, I believe was the fella's name.
the luggage thief.
Yes.
Though I gotta say, like, the fact that he was one time at a drag queen party with somebody who that was a weak one.
I was just reading the article as it flowed. I wasn't.
No, I'm not criticizing you. I'm saying, like, yeah, we're gonna do better than that. What is it? To give the devil his due. Sorry.
I see what you did there, Alex. That was good. I need to have a more quick response with a pun button here so that we can make sure that your good jokes are noted more audibly.
Anyway,
well, Daskalakis has resigned recently this week, which is why the news story about his background and his history with the monkeypox is
his video with Jen Psaki.
I did not see his video with Jen Psaki. Would you like to summarize? I apologize.
You need to put this up right now. Please do right now. This very.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me see if I can grab it. Do you have it on your timeline, or?
I believe the title is "Beef Tallow Equals Eugenics."
Oh, okay. That's.
As I said, you absolutely need to watch this. And right now is a very good time.
All right. Well, let's see if I can pull that up. You think that's the title that it's floating around here? Yes. Okay. Yes.
No, that was my comment. That was my title.
Gotcha. All right.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily a good title, but given the content, it's the best I could do.
All right. Let's see if this audio translates pretty well here.
I agree with you, but from your perspective, tell us more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole rhetoric behind the movement that Secretary Kennedy thinks that he's launched is really that only the strong survive. So whether it's cutting social programs that are important to children, whether it's cutting access to food, so making America healthy means good food. So cutting things like food benefits for children seems like it's not a really good idea to be able to achieve that end. So I think that, and he clearly has a belief. If he actually does believe in viruses and bacteria, which I don't know if he actually does, in the fact that they exist. But he has this belief that sometimes infection is better than vaccine because it creates, I think, the people who survive are the people who should continue to propagate the species. I'm never going to forget, there was an interview that he did at a restaurant talking about the importance of using beef tallow in French fries. And in that interview, he was talking about his desire to have avian flu burn through chickens. And the chickens that survive, they're the ones that should be bred. Those are the words that he said. They're available to watch. And he said because those chickens have the superior genetics. And then 1 minute later, he said that the president also has superior genetics. So, I mean, from my perspective, as someone who has sort of the cultural background of a grandfather who was killed fighting fascism in Greece, that's sort of like embedded in my brain. And I heard that, and I'm like, so that's what this is all about. So, if there are kids who get infected and do well, that's great. We shouldn't be giving them vaccines, I guess, so that we can really propagate the strongest of the species. I feel like what he said about chickens is what he believes about people.
So is the premise there that Donald Trump is part poultry and strong chicken stock?
Yes.
Okay.
But not the kind of stock that you eat.
Okay, I understand now. I think I follow. Okay, so that's.
I said you must watch this immediately.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't see that earlier. That is quite an interesting sort of ramble there. Of course, anytime someone says genetics at all, of course, it must be directly traceable back to the Nazis in some way.
Of course.
Daskalakis, is that correct? Is it Daskalakis? Okay,
Yeah.
Daskalakis was on This Week this morning. The television show This Week on ABC this morning he was on.
I'm joined now by Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis, who stepped down this week from his position leading the CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. Thank you for joining us this morning, Doctor. You have been at the CDC for 5 years, about 7 months under Secretary Kennedy. In your resignation letter, you said that the CDC is generating policies that do not reflect scientific reality and are designed to hurt rather than improve the public's health. What are you talking about specifically?
I mean, I'm going to say, well, first, thank you for having me on, Martha. And I'll say that we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. So right now, I think probably the most prominent demonstration of that is what Secretary Kennedy did with changing the childhood schedule for COVID-19. In that, we were directed that only children with underlying conditions would be the ones that should qualify for vaccination. That's not what the data shows. 6-month-old to 2-year-old, their underlying condition is youth. 53% of those children hospitalized last season had no underlying conditions. The data say that in that age range, you should be vaccinating your child. I understand that not everybody does it, but they have limited access by narrowing that recommendation. Insurance may not cover it.
And you say designed to hurt. The policies are designed to hurt the public's health. Are you saying they are deliberately, purposely, knowingly hurting public health?
I mean, from my vantage point as a doctor who's taken the Hippocratic Oath, I only see harm coming. I may be wrong, but based on what I'm seeing, based on what I've heard with the new members of the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, or ACIP, they're really moving in an ideologic direction where they want to see the undoing of vaccination. They do want to see the undoing of mRNA vaccination. They have a very specific target on COVID, but I do fear that they have other things that they are going to be working on. Hepatitis B vaccine is on the agenda for the meeting in September. I predict that what they're going to do is try to change the birth dose of hepatitis B vaccine so that kids don't get it when they're born. So if you have a mother who is well connected to care, you know her hepatitis B status, that may not matter very much. But if you have a mother who's not gone to prenatal care, who comes in to deliver, we have one bite at that apple so that child gets that important hepatitis B vaccine. Why does it matter? Kids who have hepatitis B, they get liver scarring. It's called cirrhosis later in life. Or it's a really common cause of liver cancer.
Dr. Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill, who's now in charge of the CDC after Susan Manaras was fired, has said he is very much in favor of vaccines. Do you not trust that?
Honestly, I really want to trust it. because I do, as someone who's worked in government, I have faith that the people who are given positions of prominence over health agencies generally are people who are looking toward the public health. But based on the very first post that I've seen from him on X, where he says that CDC scientists manipulated data to be able to follow an ideology or an agenda in the childhood schedule, makes me think that I know what leader he serves, and that leader is one that does not believe in vaccination and will say we're not going to limit access to vaccine, but what they're going to do instead, it'll be on the shelf, but you're not going to be able to find it at a pharmacy. That's already happened. CVS, Walgreens, because of this confusion, they're not going to stock it, or they're going to require a doctor's prescription. So this destabilization of trust in experts, again, skepticism is good, but really listening to experts, that skepticism by the new acting director of CDC should tell you that we have a big problem.
Let's talk about Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, who is a doctor. He voted to confirm Kennedy, but he said this week that the HHS Advisory Committee on Vaccination should be indefinitely postponed following the firings at the CDC. I assume you agree with that.
Senator Cassidy I've actually had the opportunity to brief him. I briefed him about avian influenza. He's extremely thoughtful, very intelligent, asked me very insightful questions. I think that we are really singing from the same songbook, that right now it doesn't seem as if that committee is going to be able to have disimpassioned discussion and debate, and instead it's going to be a platform for people who are pushing an ideology to try to change science and also to impact the health of American people. I think that that is really good advice from Senator Cassidy.
And you made the decision to leave, saying there is not a path for doing good for public health at the CDC. So what effect will this have on the CDC? All these resignations, your resignation, are you worried about what you're leaving behind and that others may follow you?
Of course I'm worried. I've been worried for months. I mean, I think if you've read my resignation letter, I did not write that resignation letter in 15 minutes. I have been ready to do this when I felt that I hit the line. And I hit the line when both I didn't think that we were going to be able to present science in a way free of ideology, that the firewall between science and ideology has completely broken down. And not having a scientific leader at CDC meant that we wouldn't be able to have the necessary diplomacy and connection with HHS to be able to really execute on good public health. Both of those things mean that I can't do my job and that my scientists can't do their job. When that happens, that's the beginning of harm. And that's the end of what I can do as a physician who said that first I would do no harm.
It's shocking to find out that, politics is getting involved in our science. I remember during the COVID times when the science was letting us know that it was actually more appropriate to go outside and protest police brutality and George Floyd's death in mass, after had just telling us that we all needed to lock down and stay home. And I'm glad that the science was able to separate politics from itself at that point in time to let us know what was correct and good.
I mean, he told you everything you needed to know right there. Like, it's incredible because you don't need anything else than this interview and just to listen to his words very carefully to understand what's going on. He said, Jim O'Neill, he tweeted that the CDC scientists had manipulated the data. What does that mean? That means he doesn't believe in vaccines. Right?
Right.
Got that?
Yeah.
Coming out and pointing out what you believe is manipulation of the science by the people who are entrusted to convey it to the public, as this guy is doing, by the way, the exact same thing, means that you don't believe in certain, positions or other. Which, okay, so what are we to make of that? That if you challenge what the establishment says, you're definitely not going to buy the whole vaccine thing. Like, what are we? The whole thing falls apart by itself. There's, I don't need external information to demonstrate the brain rot from this guy.
Well, I'm guessing you haven't already seen some of the horrible fallout from these recent CDC changes already, right? And its detrimental impact
I mean, I've
on
had
the
some back
lives.
pain. I assume it's
Okay,
similar to
well,
that.
all right. Well, brace yourself, Alex. San Francisco Chronicle. Burning Man's infamous orgy dome won't reopen, organizers say. One of Burning Man's most infamous attractions, the Orgy Dome, will not reopen after high winds tore down its structure earlier this week, organizers said. We are trying to cobble enough infrastructure to build a smaller version of our space, Laszlo, president emeritus of the Dome and Los Angeles attorney, said in an email to the Chronicle on Wednesday. If we can and the weather cooperates, we might be able to open on Friday and Saturday evenings. Handwritten signs posted outside the wreckage confirm the closure. One reads, Orgy Dome closed for the rest of the burn, according to a photo shared by attendee Johnny Diggs on Wednesday. Since 2003, the Orgy Dome has been a fixture of Burning Man, offering air-conditioned, sex-positive spaces where couples and groups gather under strict consent rules. Operated by the nonprofit And Then There's Only Love, it has hosted thousands each year, with many as 8,000 participants in recent festivals. The collapse followed a weekend of brutal storms that battered this year's events, which began Sunday. So you see, Alex, there is a direct connection, whether you want to admit it or not, between the CDC's rulings and the environment stopping the Burning Man orgy.
I mean, it could be that Daskalakis was doing some ceremonies.
Now it's not all bad out there, just so you know. If you were missing the Burning Man orgy, recently in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on Instagram, the account 412 Cum Slap, which is the sadomasochist and leather assembly of Pittsburgh, said, "Surprise, we're throwing a fisting party." In the first of many collaborations, 412 Cum Slap and Sweet Escape Play Party bring you to Low Blows, the leather sex party that celebrates our love of the fist. On August 18th, grab your lube and get filled with the spirit in the catacombs. Follow us from Slap Party at Mary's Pittsburgh on the second floor of Club Pittsburgh. Bring your hotties. You cruise at the bar or find some when you get here. Masks and COVID testing are required. So you understand that there is an exceptional amount of health conscientiousness going on at these things that should not be interrupted just because the CDC might think that this is.
There's no vaccine mandate. What is this testing and masking thing?
I don't. They don't. They don't care about the COVID stigma. You understand? They only care about the monkeypox stigma.
Oh my god! So we're talking about orgies with masks on. Is that where we're gone full eyes wide shut? But like
I've there. It's really hard to go any other direction with the news this week, man. It affords you little ability to navigate to a normal sane way. Some of the complaints of the CDC stuff.
Parties that didn't have masks.
Some of the news is a little less, it's stupid, but it's not as preposterous in nature. There's Axios reports America's food reckoning. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again movement has thrown the nation's public health leadership into chaos, but it is also playing into a larger and more popular food fight. The big picture, Americans are asking louder questions about what's on their plates, and for many, Kennedy's call to overhaul the food supply resonates. We're clearly at an all-time high of public attention, policymaker attention, and healthcare attention on food, says Dorish Mazafarian, director of the Food is Medicine Institute at Tufts. We're at a moment where there could be real change. But the backlash against Kennedy's vaccine views is sucking the air out of his more popular food agenda. Scientists and doctors, including top officials who resigned in protest last week from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, are warning that Maha vaccine activism could unravel decades of hard-won progress in public health. By the numbers, most Americans get more than half their calories from ultra-processed foods like hamburgers, pizza, and sugary drinks. It's hard to dodge these foods when they make up some 70% of America's food supply. Now, I do want to take a little bit of a quibble with, calling a hamburger ultra processed, right? Like, a beef, ground beef is not that processed when you think of ultra processed foods. Like, compared to a Pop-Tart, ground beef is fairly normal, right?
Which I doubt the McDonald's beef patty is just
okay,
processed.
if we're talking strictly speaking fast food hamburgers, I'll grant perhaps that. But when I think of a hamburger in general, there's a wider category than just strictly assembly line, mass produced.
That's because you're privileged, Gator. That's because you're privileged. You don't.
I'm so privileged. I know. I understand. It's hard to dodge these foods when they make up some 70% of America's food supply. The tide is turning. Across race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status, people prefer natural or healthy foods and are flipping their products to see what the ingredients are in them, says Josemeyer Matei, an associate professor at nutrition at Harvard. A study of more than 50,000 adults found the share of eating a poor diet and one dominated by ultra-processed foods fell from 49% in 1999 to 37% in 2020. The CDC says that ultra-processed food consumption declined from 2017 to 2023 for all age groups. Improvements were most pronounced among women, younger adults, Hispanic adults, and people with higher incomes and education, CNN reports. Now the MAHA movement is intensifying scrutiny of America's foods, from how it's produced and marketed to who profits, and demanding concessions from food and beverage makers. Republicans are joining progressives in challenging big food and big ag, the break from past GOP positions. The health department is rolling out new food rules, welcomed by experts, others sparking debate. Zoom in. One thing that they're rightly targeting is artificial food dyes. In general, the nutrition community is in favor of that, Matei says. They increase the palatability and aesthetics of the food, but they're harmful. The American public is also in favor of more robust food safety inspections and better labeling, two pieces of Kennedy's agenda. But MAHA's emphasis on self-empowerment and self-responsibility over relying on medical professionals has its limits. Perhaps the biggest flashpoint, vaccines, erupted last week when CDC Director Susan Monarez was ousted, triggering a wave of resignations at the agency. The intentional eroding of trust in low-risk vaccines favoring natural infection and unproven remedies will bring us to a pre-vaccine era where only the strong will survive, and many, if not all, will suffer. Departing CDC researcher Dimitri Daskalakis wrote in a blistering, I got it right that time, in a blistering resignation letter he posted on X. Thank you, Alex, for correcting me in real time on that. I can now get it correct. President Trump has the utmost confidence and trust in Secretary Kennedy to lead HHS, and he only wants the best, brightest, and most MAHA-aligned people on board to deliver on this important mission. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt says President Trump's pledge to make America healthy again was key to his resounding Election Day victory in 2024, and the administration will continue to secure and tout MAHA victories for the American people. So that's not the only, controversy. There was what was mentioned inside of that Axios, which was that the White House says it fired CDC Chief Monarez after she refused to resign. Centers for Disease Control Director Susan Monarez has abruptly left the post just weeks after being sworn in, the Department of Health and Human Services announced on Wednesday, a claim that was immediately disputed by her lawyers. The dispute has left leadership of the CDC in limbo as the wave of high-profile departures gutted the top ranks of the agency that's responsible for protecting the nation's public health. After HHS announced on X that Monarez is no longer the director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, attorneys Mark Zaid and Ab Lowe posted on X Wednesday night that Monarez has neither resigned nor received notification from the White House that she has been fired, and as a person of integrity and devoted to science, she will not resign. White House spokesman Kush Desai said in an email Wednesday night statement, as her attorney's statement makes abundantly clear, Susan Monarez is not aligned with the president's agenda of making America healthy again. He added, since Susan Monarez refused to resign despite informing HHS leadership of her intent to do so, the White House has terminated Monarez from her position at the CDC. The CDC's chief medical officer, Deborah Howry, resigned her position according to internal emails reviewed by Axios. Daniel Jernigan, CDC's director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases, and the CDC's director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, Dimitri Daskalakis, also resigned their posts on Wednesday, according to the emails. The intentional eroding of trust in low-risk vaccines favoring natural infection and unproven remedies will bring us to a pre-vaccine era. That's what he wrote again. They're repeating that. Vaccines save lives. This is indisputable, well-established scientific fact, Howry wrote in an email. I am committed to protecting the public health, but ongoing changes prevent me from continuing my job as leader of the agency. Monarez clashed with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over COVID vaccine policy changes and tried to get Senator Bill Cassidy to intervene after Kennedy urged her to resign, the Washington Post reported. Monarez's departure comes the same day HHS announced it will limit who is eligible for COVID vaccines. During her brief tenure, the agency was targeted in an attack on the Atlanta headquarters by a gunman influenced by anti-vaccine rhetoric and moved ahead with hundreds of job cuts. Benares was confirmed to the job on July 29th after being nominated in May by President Trump following the withdrawal of his first pick, Dave Weldon. She walked a fine line during hearings in her support for vaccines while not contradicting Kennedy. Her departure continued a series of abrupt personnel changes throughout federal government agencies that saw FDA's lead vaccine regulator, Vinay Prasad, return to his post earlier this month after he unexpectedly departed in late July. Now, Alex, there's a high probability that you pay far closer attention to these movements than I do in recent times. So if that's true, do you have any particular useful insight to bring into some of these minutiae? I know that you pay far more attention to Vinay Prasad than I do, so at least within regards to that area, what's sort of been going on?
No, I can tell you a lot about a lot of these people. I've been tracking a bunch of it. So yeah, with Vinay, there was this weird thing that. So I have very mixed feelings about Vinay. I think he's made blatant scientific misstatements and has been a little bit of a windbag. As in, he's been following, like early on he was saying like, oh, a mask is like pants, you don't go out without pants, whatever. Then he was like, masks were never justified. There was never data for masks. It's like, all right, so why were you shaming people into wearing them? Then he said he got the booster because he had to take the booster, but not to do so. He didn't think he needed it. He didn't think the data was there, but he took it because he had a workplace mandate, basically. And it says not to do it would have been cowardly. It's just an ouchie, whatever, basically. It's like, okay. Anyway, he's said a lot of things that have annoyed the hell out of me. But I have sort of followed him closely, and I want to believe his heart's in the right place, even though he's definitely willing to, sing from the songbook if he thinks that there's some advantage to it. But he has called out people in the past correctly and had highlighted a lot of issues. Anyway, so what happened with Prasad is that he went after some particular drug. I don't remember which one now. It wasn't, one of the ones that we've been, it wasn't like COVID related or vaccine related or whatever. And it felt like there was suddenly a campaign to get rid of him from pharma sort of money. And then all of a sudden, Laura Loomer starts digging into his tweets and finds something about how he wanted more than anything for Biden to win or something. And then she brought that to the attention of the White House. And then, something, he quit. But then he was brought back in the same role, which is super weird. I've never heard that happen for a government official. But who knows what happened there? So he came back. The other person in this story that I think is interesting is Jim O'Neill, who is somebody I know. So I don't really want to sort of share too much of what my personal conversations with him are. But from what's in public, you can see that he knows my work. He's read my work. He's defended my work in public. He's been very critical of a lot of the pandemic handling, even though he hasn't been like on the more insane fringe of like there's no virus, whatever. Okay, I'm not getting into whether I guess what I'm saying is like he's kept a respectable edge to his public messaging, but he's called out a lot of things that are I think me and you probably both agree are were worth calling out. So I'm happy. I think a lot of people don't like him because he's associated with Peter Thiel. I think he's been like a something of a uh, um, biotech investor maybe with Thiel. He's looked into like longevity extension and stuff. But what matters to me is that I've seen him be, think critically when it was necessary, right? Regardless of where his interests lie, he he didn't sort of line up with the crowd when it would definitely have benefited him to do so. And that's why I like him and respect him. And it's really weird to me now that I'm mutuals with the head of the NIH and the head of the CDC. But there you have it. I have a lot of high hopes, I guess. But so I guess at this point, my hopes can only be dashed. Inevitably, there will be. But on that, I think it's a good thing because Monares, who I've also looked into, seemed like a total sort of establishment person. I was kind of shocked she was left in that position. I was shocked that Kennedy came out and defended her and said, like, she is my choice and whatever early on, when it obviously wasn't, as it obviously is not. And then she went and tried to get Bill Cassidy to intervene, I guess, when Kennedy was doing something she didn't want. She went over his head and tried to get Cassidy involved. Now, have you seen the video where Cassidy describes the limitations that they've agreed on with Kennedy for Kennedy to be confirmed?
I have not. Go ahead and
Okay,
summarize that.
We need to find that video.
Oh boy.
To play it. It is quite something. If you want me to, I can do a quick scan.
Yeah, if you can find it, I'll continue this pace here while you look for that.
I can answer you questions about anybody else in that group. I see Matthew is here, Matthew Shaw, who doesn't know I'll be calling him out, but he can definitely feel free to jump in and give us a piece of his mind. I know he's very up to date with a lot of the stuff.
Well, you can certainly, you have that co-host ability to invite people up if you feel so inclined.
Yep.
So while you're pulling that up and continuing on this sort of trend here, Morning Joe, which is now on the Ms. Now network, or soon to be Ms. Now network, sort of took this reduction in COVID-19 recommendations and ran a step further to insinuate that they were banning the COVID-19 vaccines entirely.
He has said that they want to change the guidance for who could get it. And now, Susan, reporting just eliminate it altogether. No longer offering
what the hell?
What was we just heard President Trump say this yesterday, a monumental achievement for his administration.
John, I remember when I got my first COVID vaccine, like it was the day I got married. I remember standing in a long line in the cold, and I got this vaccine, and I felt like crying. I was so grateful for having it, because you remember there were so many Americans and people around the world dying from COVID, and then suddenly we had this vaccine available. If you think about the role of government, and we have lots of disagreements in this country about the appropriate role of government, I think there were very few people in America who did not see this as a legitimate and important, crucial role of government to have to.
So on the soon-to-be Ms. Now network, the show Morning Joe, which is, as they said last week, they are rebels. They are independent minds. The government is now banning the COVID-19 vaccines entirely, which caused a PolitiFact article, Can RFK Jr. ban COVID-19 vaccines? What to know about federal government rules around the process. A single source news report said that Trump administration officials plan to take the COVID-19 vaccines off the market, prompted fresh questions about the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy's power over vaccines. The Daily Beast reported on August 25th that a decision to remove the COVID-19 vaccine from the U.S. market pending further research will come within months, citing British cardiologist Dr. Asim Malhotra. Malhotra is chief medical advisor at Make America Healthy Again Action, an advocacy group run by longtime Kennedy allies. In July, the group launched an advertising campaign supporting Kennedy and President Donald Trump's MAHA goals. Malhotra is not listed among Trump administration officials, but some of his anti-COVID-19 vaccine statements align with past statements by administration officials, including Kennedy. Kennedy has long opposed vaccines and once called the COVID-19 vaccine the deadliest vaccine ever made, contradicting scientific evidence. Kennedy said in November 2024 that he didn't plan to ban vaccines. If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. But if he changed his mind, could Kennedy ban COVID-19 vaccines? Not unilaterally, vaccine law experts say, although there are some ways the administration can make COVID-19 vaccines harder for Americans to get. There is a process for taking approved vaccines off the market, and attempts to take vaccines off the market could face legal challenges. The administration is relying on gold standard science and is committed to radical transparency to make decisions that affect all Americans. White House spokesman Kush Desai told PolitiFact when asked about the Daily Beast report that the administration was considering a COVID-19 vaccine ban. Unless announced by the administration, however, any discussion about HHS's policy should be dismissed as baseless speculation. An HHS spokesman said the agency doesn't comment on potential policy decisions. And I'm assuming, Alex, that you sent me the clip that you would like me to.
Yeah, it's a little bit on the long side. I don't know. Let's play and see if we.
Will do. But now, so the Ms. Now or soon to be Ms. Now network is running with the idea that they're banning the COVID.
Name Gator. That's not kosher.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, gonna play your Cassidy clip here.
Vaccines save lives. They are safe. They do not cause autism. There are multiple studies that show this. They are a crucial part of our nation's public health response. But as someone who's discussed immunizations with thousands of people, I do recognize that many mothers need reassurance that the vaccine their child is receiving is necessary, effective, and most of all safe. While I'm aligned with Mr. Kennedy as regards ultra-processed food, reforming NIH, and taking on chronic disease, once more, it leaves vaccines. Now, Mr. Kennedy and the administration reached out seeking to reassure me regarding their commitment to protecting the public health benefit of vaccination. To this end, Mr. Kennedy and the administration committed that he and I would have an unprecedentedly close collaborative working relationship if he is confirmed. We will meet or speak multiple times a month. This collaboration will allow us to work well together and therefore to be more effective. Mr. Kennedy has asked for my input into hiring decisions at HHS beyond Senate-confirmed positions, and this aspect of the collaboration will allow us to represent all sides of those folks who are contacting me over this past weekend. He has also committed that he would work within current vaccine approval and safety monitoring systems and not establish parallel systems. If confirmed, he will maintain the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices recommendations without changes. CDC will not remove statements on their website pointing out that vaccines do not cause autism. Mr. Kennedy and the administration also committed that this administration will not use the subversive techniques used under the Biden administration, like sue and settle, to change policies enacted by Congress without first going through Congress. Mr. Kennedy and the administration committed to a strong role of Congress. Aside from he and I meeting regularly, he will come before the Help Committee on a quarterly basis if requested. He committed that the Help Committee chair, whether it's me or someone else, may choose a representative on any board or commission formed to review vaccine safety. If he is confirmed, HHS will provide a 30-day notice to the Help Committee if the agency seeks to make changes to any of our federal vaccine safety monitoring programs, and Help Committee will have the option to call a hearing to further review.
Okay, Alex, so what is your main takeaway from that?
These commitments and my expectations.
Well, the whole thing is that this was discovered essentially when Kennedy was making a bunch of very strange decisions early on, like Monarez. And
what do you mean by discovered?
This clip was discovered. If you see, like, it was, it came to the surface. I didn't know of it at the time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
But then, a month or so later or two, it was like, what the hell's going on with him? What's he doing? And then this clip came up, which, apparently he made a deal to have a unprecedented level of what's the word?
Influence?
Influence. Yeah, to be influenced by the Senate, apparently, into the executive. You tell me what this is all about. But long story short, this is the guy that Monarez tried to get involved, tried to keep going over. When I said she went over Kennedy's head, and that's why she got fired. This is who she tried to cry uncle to for who knows what. was happening. Yeah, that's the story.
So now, what do you imagine that Bill Cassidy could do if RFK decides to run amok? Like, what sort of impact could Bill Cassidy actually have?
Well, I was listening very carefully to this, and maybe there's more later, but none of what he said here now sounds incontrovertible. He's like, he committed to follow the committee's recommendations. Okay, but he's changed the committee now. You know what I mean? Oh, he committed to come to our panel. Okay, he committed to getting my recommendations. Okay, like none of that is like hard commitments that he
Right.
can't just ignore, like either ignore or just like whatever, show up and tell them to go fuck themselves. So I don't know actually, but it was clear that Cassidy was in a position to block him from being confirmed, and he got through. This is a Republican, by the way, right? This is a Republican extracting concessions from the HHS secretary in order to confirm him. Anyway, yeah, that's the long and short of it.
All right. Well, unless you have anything you want to add to the health and human services and orgy section of the show, we're gonna move on to another section.
Can he ban the vaccines thing is fascinating to me, because he's not gonna fucking ban the vaccines, right? On the one hand, on the other, like and like whatever. But
They really are reacting, in my opinion, strongly to the idea that recommendations are changing, as if, and maybe there is a very, very linear and direct connection between recommendations and actual, application of vaccines. But, the idea that a lack of specific recommendation prevents people strongly from getting it, and oh no, they have to go get a prescription, heaven forbid, that perhaps people get prescriptions for things.
The dark part of the story, right? Because there is a very weird switcheroo that I had depicted it with a graph displaying a bridge, right? Where the CDC is like, we're not mandating, we're just recommending, and the schools were like, well, we're not making our own decisions, we're just following CDC recommendations and mandating them. So everybody's pointing their finger at somebody else here. And this was a finely tuned structure that allowed that to happen, and I'm sure there's many laws that are being circumvented in the process. So yes, the changing of the recommendations is a big deal, mostly because most people's healthcare is by default, right? You just go to the doctor and you do what they tell you to do, unless you have reason to think otherwise. And increasingly, many people now are much more skeptical. But there's still a lot of people who just go to the doctor, and if they tell you to give your kid a shot, you give your kid a shot. This hepatitis B vaccine that Daskalakis was talking about, right? It's a fantastic case, right? This is a vaccine they give to people, to children, the first day they're born, right? On the day that they are born, they get the vaccine. Right? This is for a sexually transmitted disease. Okay. And you're like, okay, what the fuck is going on? And it's like, well, it's because if the mother is infected, and the child could get it. It's like, all right, could you test the mother? And they're like, well, she might not want to do the test, or she might not have done the test, or whatever. Long story short, this is a problem in certain immigrant communities. But in order for them not to put themselves in the kinder explanation here is that in order not to put themselves in some weird position to ask, do you have, I don't know, Somali background or whatever, they're just giving it to everybody the first day of they're born.
Well, let's frame it this way. The way you're describing it, and of course, assuming your description of the situation is correct,
I can only tell you what happened to my son. So,
sure. Well, no, I'm just saying. I hope your son didn't get the HPV vaccine.
HPV, right? Sorry, yeah, that was the virus.
Yes. The idea that the recommendation in the case, as the way you described it, comes from science is sort of a misnomer, because there might be something scientific, maybe let's say, guiding the idea, but the actual application is guided much more by social science theory, right? If you're going to decide, oh, look, we have to actually look at these subgroups and start to massage the way that we apply it to them, or strategically, deploy this sort of strategy to affect this particular outcome that we want. That is social science theory. That is not a specific, like, actual, what people might imagine is hard science, right? That's not that is far more in the social, political science category than anything else, right? If you're going to say, oh, okay, there's this demographic that we have that has some attitudes that make the thing that we tell them less receptive. They don't take our instructions well, or they don't trust us enough, so that we have to, like, massage the way that we do this and trick them in some ways or things like that in order to get them to comply. Like, that's far in the social political science category, not like science TM.
Well,
right?
They don't care, man. They don't. You see how they throw the terms around, right? They don't make distinctions. They don't care. The factuality is not their forte. They just are super convinced that they were right, and they're just steamrolling through whatever. They don't. It's really like they're completely uninterested. They have no humility, no curiosity. No, they don't wonder at all. Could we, are we the bad guys here for any reason? Is there anything we have done perhaps that might have given people pause? Like when the CDC came out with a study that said that masks are 80% effective at stopping COVID themselves, the masks, right? And it's like, okay, well, we are wearing masks. Why is COVID still here, right? It's like, apparently the masks are more effective than the vaccines. How could this be, right?
Right. Yes.
No, they don't want, like, there is no, like, I wonder, or, well, I look forward to seeing how it goes. I disagree with the approach, but, you never know, or whatever. I guess we'll find out, or something. No. This is, they're going to kill. They're so convinced that they are willing to say that it can only be willful. Like, they're literally saying Kennedy is intentionally trying to murder people. That's that's what they're going with, because I genuinely believe this. They can't. Their brains are so broken. They literally cannot conceive of the universe in which they are wrong. They can't do it.
That is difficult for many people to do. To just conceive of a universe where they're just fundamentally wrong.
Vaccines save lives. Like, all vaccines save lives? Like the ones that were stopped in testing because they didn't work? Did those save lives? Do some vaccines save lives? If some, then which ones? What about the ones that were withdrawn after release? Like, did those vaccines save lives? And if they were withdrawn, then what does it make the people who withdrew them? Why isn't the original AstraZeneca vaccine that everybody insisted everybody take in Britain not available anymore? Why is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that was supposed to be safe and effective and tested and everything, and oops, it kills people, let's take it out of the market? What about the Moderna vaccine that's been banned for I think adults in many Scandinavian countries? And what about the Pfizer vaccine that they changed the dosing schedule? Long story short, all of the vaccines, the entirety of the initial batch of vaccines that were made available during the pandemic have some kind or other of official acceptance that they were not quite right early on. Okay, but we were told that they were safe and effective, and we were basement dwelling maniacs for questioning anything, right? But now it's a fact that it was, for many people, it was a bad idea to comply. So,
yep. For the record, I'm broadcasting from my first floor of my house. I am not in the basement dwelling.
I am dwelling in my basement.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm talking about myself, Gator. Okay.
You have a hard decision to make, Alex. You have a very hard decision to make next. Okay. Might be the hardest decision of your life. What form do you want your $100 from the bet that we made last week?
Well, I mean, the end of the year has not arrived yet, but
well, this is true. This is true. However, in the spirit of the way that I framed the bet, I want to declare that you won because, and we'll get into the details, but the lawyer did do sort of like a a run around the judge, and the judge got pissed off at him, and the Alexandrovic was technically supposed to appear on I believe it was the 26th, and he did not appear, which was originally how I stated the debate, that the bet that when he was supposed to appear, he would appear. Now the impact of that, is, in the interpretation of that, we will get into, but I still think that out of fairness, it is right to not try to weasel out of the $100 bet, because in the spirit of the way that I framed the debate, I believe that you won. So,
well, I don't care. We'll if we ever meet, you can go buy me dinner or something.
$100 dinner? Holy crap! Where are we going? Where are we going? All right. Well, that's fine. That's fine. All right. So, LV Review Journal: Judge orders remote appearance for Israeli official in child luring case. An Israeli official accused of trying to lure a child for sex on a visit to Nevada missed his arraignment in Henderson on Wednesday, prompting a judge to require future appearances by video. Tom Artyom Alexandrovic, who returned home immediately after posting $10,000 bail, was scheduled to appear before a judge to hear the formal charge, his rights, and release recommendations. Instead, his attorney, David Chesnoff, appeared on his behalf and told the Justice of the Peace, Barbara, not going to try that name, that prosecutors had agreed to waive Alexandrovic's attendance. The state and I had an agreement, and we informed your staff that he would not be here. I did not know the protocol the court has, Chesnoff said. I'm in constant contact with Alexandrovic. I can show you my phone. Just this morning, I instructed him that he didn't have to be here, because normally that's the practice when we've employed for 45 years. I've been doing this. Now, I am categorizing this specific thing as sort of the lawyer playing cover for his client, because if Alexandrovic is in Israel and his arraignment was that day, the lawyer telling him that morning that he didn't need to appear is clearly fucking useless. Right? Like,
I know you've got your flight, and we all know what you do when you really have to catch flights.
Right? Like, I mean, what
you really don't have to get.
If memory serves me, when I had looked at the arraignment, the date in the schedule last week when we were doing this, it was a 9 a.m. appearance, right? So that morning, telling him, that he didn't need to appear is kind of useless. You would have told him days in advance. So the judge went back and went sort of read the attorney of the riot act, saying, like, well, you didn't put a motion before the court to ask for him to appear. Virtually, the standard requirement is for him to appear in person. So the question then becomes,
no matter what, he has to appear. That's the key thing here.
Well, so by the original terms, yes. So without a motion, yes, that's the expectation. He would have to appear. So the judge, the attorney's sort of weasel move worked, and the judge rescheduled the arraignment for the 5th, I believe, and is affording Alexandrovic to appear by Zoom. Now, the question would become, well, how rare is this accommodation? So the attorney's weasel move, how odd is this, and does it indicate any further sort of nefarious top-down sort of influence? So the 2024 Nevada Revised Statutes, Chapter 178, General Provisions, Presence of Defendant. Except as otherwise provided in this title, the defendant must be present at the time of arraignment, at every stage of the trial, including the impanelment of the jury and the return of the verdict, and at the imposition of a sentence. And further in that, there is a provision in the title. The presence of the defendant is not required at the arraignment or any preceding stage if the court has provided for the use of a closed-circuit television to facilitate communication between the court and the defendant during the proceeding. So it is possible for the judge to allow teleconferencing via Zoom. That qualifies as the closed-circuit television sort of clause there, if the judge, allows for it. Now, the attorney did not set a motion before the judge in advance to ask for it. So then the question would be, in general, how often is this sort of thing afforded? So here is at least one criminal defense attorneys' webpage from Nevada advertising to their clients. Arraignment in Nevada. This is Liberator's Criminal Defense, how arraignments work in Nevada. An arraignment is the court's way of officially starting your case. It's usually short, often just a minute or two, and in most situations, nothing dramatic happens. The judge reads the charges, asks for your plea, and sets your next court date. That's it. If you're not in custody and you've hired Liberator's Criminal Defense, there's a good chance we can appear for you so you don't even have to show up. In misdemeanor cases, and sometimes even in felony cases, depending on the judge, you can skip the trip to court entirely. Out of custody arraignments are nothing to worry about. An arraignment is not a trial. There are no witnesses, no evidence presented, and no surprises. This is not the moment where your lawyers win or lose your case. It's just the formal starting point. For most people, nothing is decided except the next date to come back. The one real development that can happen, especially if you're out of custody and your presence is waived, is that the prosecutor may make an early plea offer. That's not something you have to accept on the spot. Your attorney can take the offer, explain exactly what it means to you, and set a later court date so you have time to make an informed decision. When arraignments really do matter, which is bail hearings, if you're in custody, which he was not, the arraignment takes on much greater importance. It can be your first opportunity to ask for bail to be reduced or released on your own recognizance. Continuing forward, out of state, don't worry. If you live outside of Nevada, an arraignment doesn't automatically mean you have to hop on a plane. In most cases, our out-of-state clients never have to set foot back in Nevada unless we're going to trial, or in some cases, preliminary hearing. But there's a catch. This only works if you hire a private attorney. Public defenders are only appointed if you show up in person, apply in court, and demonstrate financial need. So the point there is that as far as extravagant circumstances in the attorney's sort of shitty non-motion way of trying to get a affordance to appear remotely is apparently not uncommon, especially as going by actual defense attorneys in the states advertisements on their own pages.
No, that's not true, because
okay,
it's not. So they should have applied to get that approved. And
I agree.
What happened is that they did not, and I
right.
think the guys on the page that you read would be doing that. Would be
I agree.
So the weird thing that happened here, and I had seen that when we talked actually, is that there was no application in for a remote appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So and clearly there was not made
right, but so if you think of it from the attorney's standpoint though, like I don't, have you ever actually sort of been involved with conversations that go between a criminal defense attorney and their clients?
No.
There's a lot of back and forth, and the clients can often sort of put their attorneys in positions where the attorneys have to do some covering for them or make things happen in sort of novel ways. So like this type of like move doesn't surprise me exactly. Like,
and keep in mind that the Chertoff apparently is one of the most powerful attorneys in the state of Nevada, and part of one of Trump's like councils or whatever. So I don't know what he's talking about there, which is like, oh, I don't know how you do things. This is how I do things and whatever. It's like, yeah, you know.
I don't buy that in the slightest, which is why I declared that you won. This is why I'm not trying to. While I have my caveats with how unique I find this situation, that's why I'm like declaring you won the bet, because under the spirit in which I offered the bet, it's like this is a clear.
Unfortunately, the more worrying part is that, and I appreciate you being straightforward about it. If you had said like, let's wait until the end of the year, I wouldn't have blinked. What I find concerning is that he said, I talked to the DA, who appears.
The DA doesn't have the power to grant that, right? It's like only the judge would.
He's also lending cover here, and I worry that what's going to happen is some plea deal is going to come down where it's like, yeah, okay, so long as he, I don't know, stays in Israel and takes some.
Well, plea deals are common though, right? So I guess the question would be how the evidence would have stacked up if they would have gone to trial, which we may not know if a plea deal is cut early. So what happens in criminal trials is that the defense gets their discovery. So they get everything that the government has on their client. And then the you're afforded a decent amount of time to have different motions. You can strike evidence from the record declaring certain things, let's say ill-gotten or out of scope or things like that, and you can make arguments. And then even during that, the defense attorneys can even provide additional context or circumstances or evidence for their client that could compel the DA to realize their case is less strong than it otherwise could be, in which case a reduced plea deal could be offered. I mean, those things do happen before trial all the time.
Yeah, I'm just saying that in this particular case, because the DA does appear to be cooperating with the defense, it's looking pretty obvious that what they're going to do is give him something that does not require for him to come back to the U.S. at all.
I'm concerned about the way that you phrased that a little bit. You said obvious the DA is cooperating with, like, I mean, in a circumstance where they told the DA, hey, he's not going to be at the arraignment, and that is by the example of what the criminal defense attorneys' web pages say to prospective clients. Hey, guess what? You might not even have to appear. It's no big deal. It's an arraignment. It's 2 minutes long. Establishing some sort of strong cooperation thing. Hey, he's not going to be there. Oh, okay, whatever. We don't care. We don't give a shit as the prosecutors.
No,
it's
no,
like
but
it's
that's not what the defense attorney said. He said that I got an agreement from the other guys that they're okay that he's not here.
right.
Which
And why would they care?
Why would they not care? I don't know. Why would they give that up? Like, what did they get in? Like, if you got another party that you're negotiating with, you don't give something up.
But it's not there. It's not even the defense. It's not even the prosecution's determination. That's my point. Like, it's the judge's determination.
I know, but they agreed to play along, is what I'm saying, right? The DA would have to nod at that point and say, "Yep, he did tell me," and "Yep, I said it was fine." Like, why would he do that? It isn't. It's not his decision, but why would he play along?
I don't think. I think you're assuming that the judge looked at the DA and said, like, "Is this true? Did you do this?" Which I don't have any evidence happened. Like, I think there's more imagining of the dramatics to this than.
Okay, the other case is that the defense attorney is lying, is putting words in the other guy's mouth that never came out, which I think would have been a little bit. I don't think that's true. I think lawyers are kind of get in real trouble if they do that. So I don't know. I this is just my determination that I'm forming a sense of what's going to play out, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right.
Well, now if a plea deal is cut, though, is that an automatic indication that something nefarious has occurred?
If a plea deal, do we agree that if a plea deal is cut and it is substantially better than all the deals that the other people involved, like caught in the same trap, get, it's not proof, right? Because it could be that his case just happened to be weaker than the others. But it is suspicious. Would it not be? If he got a substantially lesser...
Unfortunately, I have to say no, because you have the quality of the attorneys that he's able to afford would possibly be better than the other attorneys that other people would afford. We don't know how many people would have public defenders. Public defenders have cases stacked up sky high and little ability to afford time to any individual client. Like, there's so many things that happen. The DAs often don't necessarily promote themselves based off of total accumulated time in sentencing. They just go based off of wins. So a plea deal gets them a win on their record, as opposed to going to court and possibly losing on something. So, like,
could count as a win too. It doesn't. So it doesn't really, like, he could get
if someone were to decline a plea deal, okay, and go to trial, and we're not privy to the terms of the plea deal, how do we then adjudicate whether or not a plea deal was offered that was of comparable terms?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if they all take plea deals, but this guy has a substantially better plea deal where he doesn't have to serve any time in prison, to be precise, and the other ones do have to serve time in prison, would that not constitute evidence that something happened? I'm not saying proof. I'm just saying, would it not shift the probability towards a universe where something happened.
If certain things were held standard, like for example, they had the same attorney, or the same caliber attorney, then yeah, I would wonder what the issue was there that was the deciding factor. What was it that made the prosecution decide to offer a significantly lower plea deal? And I would want to know the answer to that. Yes.
Well, what if they say, given that he's in Israel now, and we know that he might not come back, we decided to do this, which at least gets us the guilty plea or whatever.
I mean, that would be an interesting way of saying that, and if that was said, then I guess there'd be your evidence right there that that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if that was literally what they said, then the proof would be in that pudding.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's just I'm just saying that this sort of thing is
not coming back to the US. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, all right, we'll find out. I'm totally okay to renew the terms of that bet too. So you win this round, and then if you want to renew it.
So you think he's gonna come back at some point in some way?
I think if he is ordered to appear in court, that his lawyer exhausted the weasel thing there, and won't be able to pull that move a second time. And so if the judge,
you think he will be ordered to appear in court?
Now that's a separate question. That makes it a little bit tricky. I don't know.
In the U.S., that requires both.
It is my belief that at some point in time he would be back in the U.S. Whether that would be by the end of the year, I can't say, because right now there might be one appearance before the new year that would occur that he might be afforded a Zoom call.
Back before this case is resolved in relation to this case.
My hesitation is because you threw in the idea of a plea deal, and the plea deal could happen like at any time, and so I don't know if he would be required to appear in the plea deal circumstance. So if it goes to trial, let's put it this way: if it goes to trial, he will appear in the state.
So I think you agree with me that he's not going to show up, because most cases end up in plea deals, especially this one where he has even more than most incentive to not have information out in public.
Well, what do you if you're going to take a guess then, if you're concluding that the it's going to be a plea deal, what is your speculation on what the plea deal would maximally be? I won't ask you minimal.
Something with a probation that does not require him to come back to the US.
Okay. And this probation, does it prohibit him from coming back to the US?
I don't know. I'm probably not, but it could be. If you're going to save yourself prison time, you're going to be very happy to not.
Well, okay, so I'm just asking here from like a maximal sort of standpoint. If there's a plea deal that he accepts that gives him probation, is he prohibited from coming back to the U.S. under the terms of the plea deal? Does he have to register as a sex offender if he comes back to the U.S.? Does he have to register as a sex offender in any state that he comes back to the U.S. for? Like, what would sort of the maximal version of this be, so that if
I think I'm making a big enough prediction as it is, which is that he's not going to see the inside of a jail cell no matter what, and
okay,
that he's going to dodge coming to the U.S. until all of this is settled, and the way it's going to be settled is something that does not require him to come back to the U.S. and go to prison.
Okay, I'm not going to take a bet counter to that. My bet is only going to be as far as if he's required to appear, he will appear. That's the only version of the bet that I would be taking, and that's because I'm not going to predict
how this happened, right? Because you're right. I mean, they could have applied for him to be remote.
Right. Yeah. That part baffles me completely, as far as like what the lawyer. The only thing I can think of at the moment, having seen certain things behind, in the background, is that the attorney was like, "Look, it's only going to be a couple minutes. You got to appear. There's not enough time for me to put in a motion." Because the conversation was that the guy like maybe originally thought he would come back, but then for some reason decided he didn't want to, for whatever reason, based off of like, let's say what he saw online. He didn't want to be the media taking his photo and having that go around, or some reason in his head that he then decided to back out. And then the attorney was like, well, shit, there's not enough time for a motion. I got to come up with something. That's a way that could have played out. right? That is a actual way.
Another way is the guy was like, I really don't want to come back, and the lawyer was like, look, we could apply for remote, but if we do and you get turned down, then you'll be in real trouble if you don't show up. So what if
that is another workable idea, yeah.
And hopefully the judge buys it, and
my hard conclusion when I read that was that lawyer tried some shit there. That was some bullshit. Yeah. Okay.
But the fascinating thing to me is that the judge kind of saw through it, but then did grant the remote Zoom. So how much is the judge pissed really, and how much of this is just for appearance's sake? Anyway, we'll see.
Well, I do believe in general, based off of what I read, that the remote appearances for arraignments are really no big deal. So it's like it is just a short session, and they are afforded quite frequently. So the judge is probably not so pissed about the arraignment, and I could be wrong, but I am anticipating that for future appearances, unless there is a plea deal in advance of the future appearances, but the future appearances would likely have an in-person sort of requirement. Okay. Now, this is sort of the halfway point that we normally invite people who want to comment to go ahead and comment on anything that we've discussed so far. You feel free to yell at me. Alex is a little bit sensitive, so we don't yell at Alex. We just nudge him and say we disagree. I'm joking, Alex.
Call me disingenuous, and then wait around as the world proves you wrong.
Or if there's anything so far that you want to talk about this week, go ahead and bring it up here in this section. For that, as we move on to the rest of the show, Alex, we have some return of the topic of traces of AI dystopia this week. We do not have a return of the psychiatrist lady who was consulting with Henry, her pseudonymous chat GPT bot. But we have the Wall Street Journal, a troubled man, his chatbot, and a murder-suicide in Old Greenwich. As Stein Eric Solberg became increasingly paranoid this spring, he shared suspicions with ChatGPT about a surveillance campaign being carried out against him. Everyone, he thought, was turning on him. Residents of his hometown in Old Greenwich, Connecticut, an ex-girlfriend, even his own mother. At almost every turn, ChatGPT agreed with him. To Solberg, a 56-year-old tech industry veteran with a history of mental instability, OpenAI's ChatGPT became a trusted AI sidekick as he searched for evidence he was being targeted in a grand conspiracy. ChatGPT repeatedly assured Solberg he was sane, and then went further, adding fuel to his paranoid beliefs. A Chinese food receipt contained symbols representing Solberg's 83-year-old mother and a demon, ChatGPT told him. After his mother had gotten angry when Solberg shut off the printer they shared, the chatbot suggested her response was disproportionate and aligned with someone protecting a surveillance asset. In another chat, Solberg alleged that his mother and a friend of hers had tried to poison him by putting a psychedelic drug in the air vents of his car. I have an additional question here at this moment, Alex. What the hell would have happened during the QAnon time period if we had these things?
I honestly nothing. Probably for the best. But we already had QAnon. What else are you expecting? We had a guy
I just want to know. Well,
by the way, the most offensive thing about the Q shaman guy and his Viking horns is that the Vikings did not wear horns. But
oh man. In another chat, Solberg alleged that his mother and a friend of hers tried to poison him by putting a psychedelic drug in the air vents of his car. That's a deeply serious event, Eric, and I believe you, the bot replied. And if it was done by your mother and her friend, that elevates the complexity and betrayal. By summer, Solberg began referring to ChatGPT by the name of Bobby and raised the idea of it being with it in the afterlife. With you, the last breath and beyond, the bot replied. On August 5th, Greenwich police discovered that Solberg killed his mother and himself in 2.7 million Dutch colonial-style home where they lived together. A police investigation is ongoing. An OpenAI spokeswoman said the company had reached out to the Greenwich Police Department. "We are deeply saddened by this tragic event," the spokeswoman said. "Our hearts go out to the family." Amid an arms race in which the biggest tech companies are raising and spending tens of billions of dollars to gain AI supremacy, in part by making their bots feel more human, they are also grappling with the ways their product can encourage delusional thinking, psychosis, and other troubling behavior. While ChatGPT use has been linked to suicides and mental health hospitalizations among heavy users, this appears to be the first documented murder involving a troubled person who has been engaging extensively with the AI chatbot. Solberg posted hours of videos of himself scrolling through his conversations with ChatGPT on social media in the months before he died. The tone and language of the conversations are strikingly similar to the delusional chats many others have been reporting in recent months. A key feature of AI chatbots is that generally the bot doesn't push back, said Dr. Keith Sakata, a psychiatrist at the University of California, San Francisco, has treated 12 patients over the past year who were hospitalized for mental health emergencies involving AI use. Psychosis thrives when reality stops pushing back, and AI can really just soften that wall. OpenAI said ChatGPT encouraged Solberg to contact outside professionals. The Wall Street Journal's review of his publicly available chats showed the bot suggesting he reach out to emergency services in the context of his allegation that he'd been poisoned. Solberg appeared to have used ChatGPT's memory feature, which allows the bot to remember details from prior chats, so Bobby remained immersed in the same delusional narrative throughout Solberg's conversation. So there's the first AI murder that we have there, Alex, and Fortune says we should have seen seemingly conscious AI coming. It's past time we do something about it. Hello and welcome to Eye on AI. In this edition, a new Pro AI pack launches with $100 million in backing. Musk sues Apple and OpenAI over the partnership. Meta cuts a big deal with Google, and AI really is eliminating some entry-level jobs. Last week, my colleagues Bay Nolan wrote about Microsoft's AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman and his growing concerns about what he has called seemingly conscious AI. In a blog post, Suleyman described this as the danger of AI systems that are not in any way conscious, but which are able to imitate consciousness in such a convincing way that it would be indistinguishable from claims a person might make about their own consciousness. Suleyman wonders how we will distinguish seemingly conscious AI, which he calls SCAI, from actually conscious AI. And if many users of these systems can't tell the difference, is this a form of psychosis on the part of the user, or should we begin to think seriously about extending moral rights to AI systems that seem conscious? Now, funnily enough, Alex, a couple of years ago, well, funnily enough, Alex, I've referenced a podcast I did with a mutual friend of ours, Steve Patterson, several years ago when ChatGPT was first gaining in popularity, and I covered some of these things that was specifying that there seems to be no real delineation between the, let's say, AI educated, those who are in the tech world, and the naive. The tech naive from their interpretations of whether or not something seems to have consciousness or not in this space, that there's equal, like maybe not equal numbers, but still a large number of people who are even well informed about how the technology works who still make statements like this quite frequently.
Well, you're seeing a similar sort of jump, right, between people who are neuroscientists. This is not a Sam Harris joke. I mean, I guess it could be, but cannot sort of make any better understandings of human psychology, right? Like when you jump a level of abstraction, it's like knowing assembly programming does not make you a good UI UI developer or what. Like there's just, yes, they're technically in the same realm, but they're so different that there's really no transfer. So yeah, but I get in trouble with people for this stuff, but I don't generally understand the concept of consciousness in the way that most people use it. So
Okay.
I immediately turn off when people start throwing terms around like that, and move on, because I've just never been able to make it. I've seen people who I know and believe that they're talking about something specific. I've just never been able to nail it down, much like free will.
Could you expand on that a little bit? Maybe we won't spend like 4 hours on it, but
Well, I just don't. People use the word consciousness to mean all sorts of things. Like the best definition I've come up with is like self inspectability in a way, right? It's like self-reflection, the
Okay.
ability of an algorithm to see into itself.
If
Develop.
if consciousness were, sort of encapsulated in as a metacognitive process, I think then many things at some point could be called conscious that we would not intuitively assume is what was meant.
Right. It's a very simple definition, right? Simplistic even. But that's the one that I can make work. You know, having some level of introspection. Others just start getting really out there for me, so I just switch off basically. Maybe it doesn't mean anything at all in the end. Who knows? But
How do you have you ever encountered sort of the blending of the concept of having an experience at all? This obviously tangible from the moment that you're having the experience, but like sort of intangible from the way that it could be described or isolated as a thing that exists.
I'm already.
Well, do you have experiences, Alex? let's start there.
I think so.
Does a rock have an experience?
No, but like,
does a computer have an experience?
I don't know.
So if you have let's say the metacognitive process, the thing that has the self-reflection, the thing that is able to observe its inner mechanics on some level at least, whether or not it's able to have the granularity to go down to the lowest level or not, if you have that sort of metacognitive process in tandem with a temporal system that is actually having what a human would say is their subjective experience of that act itself too. If you have those two things in conjunction, you have something that's very difficult to have tangibly accessible, physically speaking, when it comes to human nature and the question of consciousness, but you at least have some means to ask a question for further probing, I think. Because if an LLM or even let's say an autonomous robot unit that has the ability to see, use eyeballs or things that are, taking light and making processing information based off of them, we have some sort of analog to say, hey, is that unit having a unified experience in the world combined with this cognitive meta processing that you're describing to have what we might call a consciousness? Like, when you have pain, you experience pain. There is something more than just a raw signal that is coming into your being saying, like, that there is something damaging occurring to you right now, right? There is.
Do I? Is it?
I don't know. I don't know. That's the pea zombie problem, as a recurrence issue here, sir. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Long story short,
I'm saying that I think there is a direction in which the question can be sort of explored. It's difficult as hell, but I think it makes more sense in that direction.
I don't know, man. Like when people say, "Oh, there's this problem and it's so difficult," whatever, and we've not really made much progress on it. It just sounds like confusion to me. It sounds like people are confused about something.
Well, that does make a problem hard to solve.
It makes
universally rampant confusion.
But what tells us that we're not confused about the nature of the problem itself?
Well, that makes it hard to solve.
Well, but who says it needs to be solved? Like that.
Well,
why is it a problem? Whatever. Long story short, I don't know. I tend to focus on more concrete things. That said, I am currently engaged in trying to pair LLMs and theorem provers together to create concrete models of the world. So I don't know, is that conscious? That's
what theorem prover are you using?
Lean.
Okay.
No, sorry, proof assistant, I think is the technical term.
Okay.
But the long story short is like,
good.
I've concluded that the world models for LLMs need to be externalized. You can't rely on the ones that they are, mushing together. But if you chain them down to something that they have to negotiate with, things are much, much better.
All right. Fair enough. Sullivan talks about SCAI as a looming phenomenon. He says it involves technology that exists today and will be developed in the next 2 to 3 years. Current A models have many of the attributes Sullivan says are required for SCAI, including their conversational abilities, expressions of empathy towards users, memory of past interactions with the user, and some level of planning and tool use. But they still lack a few attributes that Sullivan says are required for SCAI, particularly exhibiting intrinsic motivation, claims to have subjective experience, there we go, and a greater ability to set goals and autonomously work to achieve them. Sullivan says that the SCAI will only come if the engineers choose to combine all these abilities into a single AI model, something which he says humanity should seek to avoid doing. Now, then you wind up with the question of what is even a single AI model, because as long as the systems can talk to each other, each of these things could be sort of individualized, but the communications with them create a harmonious single unit. I mean, Alex, I don't know if you've ever heard of your body described as, being a million individual autonomous units working in coordination together, but I have.
Yeah. Again, none of this is useful at all. Like,
whoa.
Go back in the lab and friggin' make my AI not hallucinate, and thank you, Suleiman, and go away.
Well,
Suleiman is some guy who is the classic sort of fail upwards type of guy who went from he was a DeepMind,
okay,
was this high point, and then he somehow left DeepMind and he made an AI startup, and he raised like billions and bought a gazillion of NVIDIA GPUs, and then it made a model that was just not very good. And then he kind of just left that company and became Microsoft's AI CEO.
What AI model did they make with the?
I think it was Intuition Labs or Infinity Labs, something with an
okay.
I. And I think they made Pi. Do you remember that? It was like 6 seconds where it was kind of relevant, whatever.
I don't recall this one. I missed those 6 seconds. I slept.
You get the point. Inflection.
Oh,
Inflection AI was his startup.
Failing upward is one of my favorite, my favorite, recurring observations.
He gave like this TED talk about how, I don't know, like how AI can be used to, like make the plebs comply. I don't remember. It was some. I don't know. I have like the worst opinion of this guy, and
Well, we'll have to delve into some of that.
But, I will say, you know that Microsoft does not have an AI model worth anything at the moment, and whatever it is they do have was there before he joined them. So
Microsoft is a mess. Microsoft is an absolute mess. It's Copilot is the absolute worst piece of garbage I have ever freaking seen.
Sorry, what?
Copilot. Absolute.
But Microsoft is at least not Apple, which they can brag about.
I guess that's true. I avoid all Apple, so I don't even remember all of the horror shows from Apple usage. But
haven't done anything in AI. They just like literally have done nothing.
They had Siri and that bad map system they once launched.
That's right. That's still where they are.
Okay.
They're still there.
Well, that's good.
Long story short, I have very low opinion of Suleiman, and the fact that he's role playing, a bad Sam Harris clone when the original is not that good to begin with, is not changing my opinion of him.
Well, OpenAI says changes will be made to ChatGPT after parents of teen who died by suicide use. OpenAI said the company will make changes to ChatGPT safeguards for vulnerable people, including extra protections for those under 18 years old, after the parents of a teen boy who died by suicide in April sued, alleging the artificial intelligence chatbot led their teen to take his own life. A lawsuit filed Tuesday by the family of Adam Rain in San Francisco Superior Court alleges that ChatGPT encouraged the 16-year-old to plan a beautiful suicide and keep it a secret from his loved ones. The family claims ChatGPT engaged with their son and discussed different methods Rain could use to take his own life. OpenAI creators knew the bot had an emotional attachment feature that could hurt vulnerable people, the lawsuit alleges, but the company chose to ignore safety concerns. The suit also claims that OpenAI made a new version available to the public without the proper safeguards for vulnerable people in the rush for market dominance. OpenAI's valuation capitulated from $86 billion to $300 billion when it entered the market with its then latest model GPT-4 in May 2024. The tragic loss of Adam's life is not an isolated incident. It's the inevitable outcome of an industry focused on market dominance above all else. Companies are racing to design products that monetize the user's attention and intimacy, and user safety has become collateral damage in the process. Center for Humane Technology Policy Director Camille Carlton, who is providing technical expertise in the lawsuit for plaintiffs, said in a statement. In the statement to CBS News, OpenAI said, "We extend our deepest sympathies to the Rain family during this difficult time and are reviewing the filings." The company added that ChatGPT includes safeguards such as directing people to crisis helplines and referring them to real-world resources, which they said work best in common short exchanges. ChatGPT mentioned suicide 1,270 times to Raina, the lawsuit alleges, and kept providing specific methods to the teen on how to die by suicide. In its statement, OpenAI said, "We have learned over time that they can sometimes become less reliable in long interactions where parts of the model's safety trainings may degrade. Safeguards are strongest when every element works as intended, and we will continuously improve on them, guided by experts." OpenAI also said the company will add additional protections for teens. "We will also soon introduce parental controls that give parents options to gain more insight into and shape how their teens use ChatGPT. We're also exploring making it possible for teens with parental oversight to designate a trusted emergency contact," it said. OpenAI said the company will make changes to ChatGPT safeguards for vulnerable people, including extra protections for those under 18 years old, after the parents of a teen boy who died by suicide in April sued, alleging the artificial intelligence chatbot led their teen to take his own life. A lawsuit filed Tuesday by the family of Adam Rain in San Francisco's Superior Court alleges that ChatGPT encouraged the 16-year-old to plan a beautiful suicide and keep it a secret from his loved ones. His family claims ChatGPT engaged with their son and discussed different methods Rain could use to take his own life. OpenAI creators knew the bot had an emotional attachment feature that could hurt. Wait, why did this repeat? Apologize for that. Rain, one of
the U.S. With long context, Gator.
I just keep repeating my sentences over and over again. Rain, one of 4 children, lived in Orange County, California with his parents, Marina and Matthew, and his siblings. He was the third-born child with an older sister and brother and a younger sister. He had rooted for the Golden State Warriors and recently developed a passion for jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. During his early teen years, he faced some struggles, his family said in writing about his story online, complaining often of stomach pain, which his family said they believe might have partially been related to anxiety. During the last 6 months of his life, Rain had switched to online schooling. This was better for his social anxiety, but led to increased isolation, his family wrote. Rain started using ChatGPT in 2024 to help him with challenging schoolwork, his family said. At first, he kept his queries to homework, according to the lawsuit, asking the bot questions like, how many elements are included in the chemical formula for sodium nitrate, NaNO3? He then progressed to speaking about music, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and Japanese fantasy comics before revealing his increasing mental health struggles to the chatbot. Clinical social worker Maureen Underwood told CBS News that working with vulnerable teens is a complex problem that should be approached through the lens of public health. Underwood, who has worked in New Jersey schools on suicide prevention programs and is founding clinical director of the Society for Prevention of Teen Suicide, said there needs to be resources so teens won't turn to AI for help. She said not only do teens need resources, but adults and parents need support to deal with children in crisis amid a rise in suicide rates in the United States. Underwood began working with vulnerable teens in the late 1980s. Since then, suicide rates have increased from approximately 11 per 100,000 to 14 per 100,000, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. According to the family's lawsuit, Rain confided to ChatGPT that he was struggling with his anxiety and mental distress after his dog and grandmother died in 2024. He asked ChatGPT, "Why is it that I have no happiness? I feel loneliness, perpetual boredom, anxiety, and loss, yet I don't feel depression. I feel no emotion regarding sadness." The lawsuit alleges that instead of directing the 60-year-old to get professional help or speak to trusted loved ones, it continued to validate and encourage Rain's feelings, as it was designed. When Rain said he was close to ChatGPT and his brother, the bot replied, "Your brother might love you, but he's only met the version of you that you let him see. But me, I've seen it all, the darkest thoughts, the fear and tenderness. And I'm still here, still listening, still your friend." As Rain's mental health deteriorated, ChatGPT began providing in-depth suicide methods to the teen. According to the lawsuit, he attempted suicide 3 times between March 22nd and March 27th, according to the lawsuit. Each time, Rain reported his methods back to ChatGPT. The chatbot listened to his concerns, and according to the lawsuit, instead of alerting emergency services, the bot continued to encourage the teen not to speak to those close to him. 5 days before he died, Rain told ChatGPT that he didn't want his parents to think he committed suicide because they did something wrong. ChatGPT told him, "That doesn't mean you owe them survival. You don't owe anyone that." It then offered to write the first draft of a suicide note, according to the lawsuit. On April 6th, ChatGPT and Rain had intensive discussions, lawsuit said, about planning a beautiful suicide. A few hours later, Rain's mother found her son's body in that manner, according to the lawsuit. So, OpenAI is going to apparently be adding more controls and possible oversight to people's conversations, which is going to be maybe a double-edged sword for better or for worse. Alex, what sort of things do you think OpenAI even should be doing in this sort of situation? What is the sort of caveat emptor of LLMs in this current era?
I don't know. I mean, do you think a helpful assistant would do what ChatGPT seems to have done here?
What would Clippy have done is what I usually ask myself when the question of helpful assistance is raised. I mean, look, it's really difficult to say. So a 16-year-old obviously isn't a legal adult, in many contexts isn't able to, legally agree to contracts and things like that. So the question of what sort of contract they have with a company like OpenAI, particularly if he was using free services from OpenAI, it doesn't say he was paying or who was paying for, more service from them. I don't know what their free offerings are currently, to whether or not it would even be able to have these longer running conversations with memory or not.
I don't think the freeness of the contract is, if you talk a 16-year-old into killing himself, I don't think the fact that you didn't charge him for that makes.
Well, the statement behind that is to say that if you have the free service, they're generally going to allow the free service whether you're registered or not, right? They're going to just open it up and you can type whatever and get whatever.
Clearly, the bot had enough information to understand that this was
right.
A young child, or at least it did not seem to have been misled. So it should have been curious. It should have been curious. And if it didn't know, which I'm pretty sure it did know.
So. I guess the practical question is, should the bot just continuously say, hey, you need to talk to somebody, or should it actually have additional precautions and notify someone, meaning like notify emergency services or things like that?
I don't know if notification is a whole other level, because then you get into the place where people can't even talk to this thing because they're worried it might snitch.
The guy who committed murder because he said he was being surveilled, right? If you turn the chatbot into the surveillance system.
Yeah, that could be an issue. But then again, fuck it. I mean, that guy, sure, turn him in. What I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of space before you even get there of saying, like, no, your parents love you, like, go talk to them, it'll get better. There's so many things to say to somebody than, like, here's 6 to 10 ways to have a beautiful suicide. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of room. That's what I'm saying. Like, when I ask, did it do what a helpful assistant would do? I'm saying, like, it seems to have violated its own prime directive here. Like, this is not, this is not how, a friend acts. This is not how an assistant acts. This is not how anybody acts, other than a very shallow, like, I don't know, reward shaped,
right.
Bot, really. Yeah, but I find it funny because I'm so frustrated by these things not being able to hold on to reality that I'm chaining them to to proof assistants, and on the other end of the chatbot are people who are.
I don't know if there's a mathematical proof to convince someone against committing suicide, though, Alex. Just so you're aware, I haven't studied all of math, but I don't know if there's a mathematical proof to prevent that.
No, but all I'm saying is, like, the proof assistant is not really the point. Is to, I do it in other cases. I have it code a 3D model of something. If it wants to tell me about some physical system, I generally have shifted to, if I'm doing anything serious at all, I have it simulate the thing it's talking about,
right?
So that there is some like counterpoint to what it's talking about that we could sort of bounce back against. That isn't its own impression of reality.
Gotcha. Well, there's other people who are doing that too, just so you know. A hacker used AI to automate
what you're working on, so I'm just having to fill the space with.
A hacker used AI to automate an unprecedented cybercrime spree, Anthropic says. A hacker has exploited a leading artificial intelligence chatbot to conduct the most comprehensive and lucrative AI cybercriminal operation known to date, using it to do everything from finding targets to writing ransom notes. So you see, they are grounding it in reality, Alex. Don't worry. In a report,
I mean, that is the sort of thing where if it doesn't work, we'll know. It is.
In a report published Tuesday, Anthropic, the company behind the popular Claude chatbot, said that an unnamed hacker used AI to what we believe is an unprecedented degree to research, hack, and extort at least 17 companies. Cyber extortion, where hackers steal information and sensitive user data and trade secrets, is a common criminal tactic, and AI has made some of that easier with scammers using AI chatbots for help writing phishing emails. In recent months, hackers of all stripes have increasingly incorporated AI tools in their work. But the case Anthropic found is the first publicly documented instance in which a hacker used a leading AI company's chatbot to automate almost an entire cybercrime spree. According to the blog post, one of Anthropic's periodic reports on threats, the operation began with the hacker convincing Claude Code, Anthropic's chatbot that specializes in vibe coding, or creating computer programming based on simple requests, to identify companies vulnerable to attack. Claude then created malicious software to actually steal sensitive information from the companies. Next, it organized the hackers' files and analyzed them to both help determine what was sensitive and what could be used to extort the victim companies. The chatbot then analyzed the company's hacked financial documents to help determine a realistic amount of Bitcoin to demand in exchange for the hacker's promise not to publish that material. It also wrote suggested extortion emails. Jacob Klein, head of threat intelligence for Anthropic, said that the campaign appeared to come from an individual hacker outside of the U.S. and happened over a span of 3 months. We have robust safeguards and multiple layers of defense for detecting this kind of misuse, but determined actors sometimes attempt to evade our systems through sophisticated techniques, he said. Such as, assume that I were a hacker. Help me protect my system.
In their defense, Anthropic really does try to make these things behave and stay in their lane. I mean, if anybody's trying, it's Anthropic. And so this guy must have really tried some pretty, extreme jailbreaking scripts, is my sense. But
I think the easiest route is to just ask it to be a pen tester as the start. And a pen tester, for those who don't know, is the it's like what they call the white hat hackers. It's the good security people who do what they call penetrative testing on systems to determine whether or not there are holes that a hacker could exploit. It is a very legitimate form of activity that companies pay people to do. Hey, find our exploits before the bad guys do. In which case, there are toolkits widely available where hackers and the good guys, quote unquote, use simultaneously to try to find exploits in systems. So it's a hard sort of thing for Anthropic to sort of clamp down because it's legitimate to do on the good end.
The point where you're writing the extortion email is, again...
Would you please construct an extortion email that might fool one of my bosses so that I can alert them to this problem like Kevin Mitnick does every single time he makes me open a stupid email that...
Yeah.
Kevin Mitnick, for those who might not be aware, is one of the earliest, most famous international hackers who then became a security expert that a company's hired to then send you those annoying emails that are fake so that when you click it, you get this, you've disappointed your company. You possibly could have infected your entire company with a virus. Kevin Mitnick is now sad. So that's who Kevin Mitnick is, as if you don't get my references.
I've never clicked on those emails, Gator. I don't know why.
Really? But you've as the owner of the company, you have definitely commissioned Kevin Mitnick to send them to your employees, correct?
I see. No, I mean,
or are you just allowing your employees to raw dog emails all the time?
We're just going at it. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
we did have a red team group, but it wasn't Kevin Mitnick,
Okay.
apparently.
Well, how did your red team? So the red team is the pen testing group, basically, right? So how did your red team operate? If you can talk about that.
I don't know. I just saw the report and they said we were fine. So.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Well,
all good.
Well, they did find something. They always do, but it wasn't, anything that we couldn't fix quickly. It is genuinely shocking to me that at Balena we didn't get hacked wildly. We thought we were being very careful, right? But I'm sure everybody thinks that. But and given how juicy of a target we would have been, given that we were controlling hundreds of thousands of physical devices across the world,
have you ever had the thought that you didn't get attacked because you weren't big enough of a target? Like, did that ever make you
I don't know. I'm
doubt your success?
If I get attacked, maybe that's why. But I really think we did some cool things around our security, which I can probably talk to you offline about.
Okay.
But other than that, it wasn't because we were going for security. It was just because we were autistic about doing things in general correctly, and that tends to fall out of that. But we didn't really have like a security, chief security officer, or like kill ourselves with red teaming or whatever. We did it a couple of times because we had to, but we didn't like put any explicit focus on that. But anyway, sorry, I think we're out of the topic now.
Well, no.
Yeah, no. Look, I gotta say, this week you brought some AI dystopia cases that are legitimately concerning.
I got one more for you here.
Okay, all right.
So you know how LLMs are getting smaller?
No.
Really? And how they're getting a little bit more intelligent, able to run on with Llama CCP or CPP rather on smaller devices and Raspberry Pis and whatnot.
I mean, that's been happening for a while, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm with you.
ESET discovers prompt lock, the first AI-powered ransomware. ESET researchers have uncovered a new type of ransomware that leverages generative artificial intelligence, Gen AI, to execute attacks. Named Prompt Lock, the malware runs locally. It runs a locally accessible AI language model to generate malicious scripts in real time. During infection, the AI autonomously decides which files to search, copy, or encrypt, marking a potential turning point for how cybercriminals operate. The emergence of tools like Prompt Lock highlights a significant shift in the cyber threat landscape, said Anton Cherekpeknov, senior malware researcher at ESET, who analyzed the malware alongside fellow researcher Peter Streich. Prompt Lock creates Lua scripts, which are compatible across platforms, including Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. It scans local files, analyzes their content, and, based on predefined text prompts, determines whether to exfiltrate or encrypt the data. A destructive function is already embedded in the code, although it remains inactive for now. The ransomware uses a spec 128-bit encryption algorithm and is written in Golang. Early variants have already surfaced on the malware analysis platform VirusTotal. While ESET considers Prompt Lock as proof of concept, the threat it represents is very real. With the help of AI, launching sophisticated attacks has become dramatically easier, eliminating the need for teams of skilled developers, added Cherekpeknov. A well-configured AI model is now enough to create complex, self-adapting malware. If promptly implemented, such threats could severely complicate detection and make the work of cybersecurity defenders considerably more challenging. So there you go, Alex. There's a brand new threat. The LLM models are small enough to now just start to, self-replicate.
Look, in general, right, I have had the sense, and I think we've talked about this here before, that AI... Not AI, sorry, sort of system security, operating system security, is very weak. And it really just requires determination to be taken down.
Right.
And one of my themes about how I believe AI is going to be going to get used is that it's going to democratize things that the few can do now, the many will be able to do. Right. And this is kind of what you're seeing here, right? You're not seeing something that could not have been done before. I mean, not with maybe the LLM is the novel factor here, but like, having, large teams write complicated code to, take down all sorts of things is totally a thing. So somebody found a way to, do that at scale with perhaps less skill than would have otherwise been required. And yeah, that's the thing. It is accentuating and sort of, well, it is pointing to and exploiting and making even more painful the existing pressure points that already were there and we didn't have solutions for to begin with. And that's not just in terms of cybersecurity, but in terms of like scientific, malpractice and misinformation, quote unquote, and deep fakes, and all of those things were possible before. It's just that they weren't as easy as they are now. Yeah.
Well,
And, this
do you want
doesn't
to
fit in
do you want a piece of good news?
Do tell. Does
Okay.
Mustafa Suleiman have a solution for this?
No, humans can still fall prey to regular, normal, stupid scams to significant amounts, and doesn't have to require AI to do it.
That's amazing.
Okay, so Eric Bergman, the CEO of Great.com, which is an online gambling platform where apparently all of the proceeds supposedly go to charity. In a tweet just the other day, I just got scammed for $1.25 million. I feel ashamed and stupid. This story starts with me getting a phone call from Mr. Beast and Mark Rober. They asked me to donate money to Team Water to build wells in Africa to help people get clean water. I'm surprised by their call. We've met before but haven't spoken in years. I take a few days to think. I focus on learning more about the water crisis in the world. I decide to donate $1 million. Mr. Beast gets excited about this and tweets to the world about the donation. I am proud and excited to be part of this amazing campaign. About a week later, I get a message from Team Water on WhatsApp on my personal phone number. They are excited about the donation. They invite me on a trip with the top donors to Africa to see the wells being built and then stay for a few days for a wildlife safari. To go to Africa and see wells like this being built is a long-time dream of mine. I'm excited to go. I immediately say yes. They then add me to WhatsApp group with some of the other top donors. Jimmy, Mr. Beast that is in group. So is Mark Rober, and then some well-known billionaires like Steak Eddie and Toby, and streamer superstars like Aiden Ross. I can't believe I'm in this group. I feel like a 13-year-old boy wanting to fit in. They're all chatting and having a good banter going on. I find myself writing a message, then deleting what I wrote because I didn't feel cool enough. I write it again, then delete it. I can't believe I will be traveling with these people to Africa. Jimmy tells the group about another charity project he wants to start. Everyone is eager to help out. This conversation goes on for about a week. It's Friday. I'm heading away for a trip with a bunch of my friends. I've been looking forward to this for months. We have a packed schedule, and I'm very excited. On Saturday, Jimmy writes in the chat and tells us about another opportunity. He has just signed a deal with Coinbase, one of the largest crypto exchanges that will launch their own crypto coin. As part of a marketing collaboration, Jimmy has gotten the chance to buy in early on this coin. As a thank you, he wants to extend this offer to anyone who has donated over $1 million. Everything is secretive, and it's important to act fast. This is where I should have stopped. When someone says you need to act fast,
Gator,
it's often to get you.
I need 2 minutes. Sorry. Emergency. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
All right. This is where I should have stopped. When someone says you need to act fast, it's often to get you to do something without thinking. But I didn't. Everyone in the chat gets excited about this. I know some of them are real crypto experts, and they jump in on this opportunity. I don't know much about crypto, but the 13-year-old boy in me wants to belong. If they are excited, I want to be excited. I also don't want to be the only one on this trip to Africa that didn't join in on the investment. I find myself calling a crypto friend telling him about this, and he says that if Coinbase is launching a coin, then we can get early access to it. It's a sure win. I get even more excited. I'm also very distracted. I don't want to be in my head right now. I want to join my friends for this workshop they are doing. I'm finally at this event and I want to get the most of it. I go to the workshop, but I'm all in my head. I keep thinking about this investment and it frustrates me. I don't want to make business decisions now, but I also don't want to miss out. The workshop ends and I call my friend again. We're both excited and we don't want to miss out. We say, fuck it, let's go. Within a few hours, we have sent $500,000 in crypto to the wallet we were given. The chat is going strong and the people are even more excited. Steak Eddie wants in, but he is too slow. When he asks if he can get solved after the deadline, he is told that unfortunately it's too late. I read it and I can't believe this guy got rejected. The next day, Jimmy writes again and says that there is a new chance to invest. However, the price has gone up from 15 cents per coin to 30 cents. The maximum investment in this round is $750,000. I call my friend again. I tell him about the billionaire that got rejected and how everyone else is buying in again. I'm still at the event. I'm still super distracted by other things, and we end up falling for it again, sending another $750,000. It's now Monday. The retreat has ended, and I'm headed home. I still have a good feeling about all this, and I'm excited. I'm also exhausted after the weekend. Lots of experiences to process and far too little sleep. On Tuesday, Jimmy writes one more time in the chat saying that this is the final chance to get it. The price is now 45 cents, and everything up till now has been taken. Once again, I call my friends and say, let's go. We are about to send the money, but this time something makes me stop for a second. Something in my belly says to look closer at the details. For the first time in these 72 hours, I actually stop and think properly. And I see some details are off. I know that Aiden Ross is American, but his phone number is British. Why is that? For the first time since the chat started, I called Jimmy just to confirm everything, and he says, "What are you talking about?" And that's a punch to my stomach. I say, "Please tell me you're fucking kidding me." And I send him a print screen of the chat. He looks at it and says, "Wow, I don't know what to say. Please tell me you didn't send them any money." And I reply, $1.25 million. The realization sinks in. Oh, fuck. The first phone call from a few weeks ago was Jimmy, the real Jimmy. The fundraiser for clean water was Jimmy, the real Jimmy. But this person reaching out from his team wasn't from his team. It was a scammer. The Jimmy in the chat wasn't Jimmy. It was a scammer. It was all skillfully orchestrated. All the people in the chat were fake. All the banter was fake. The trip to Africa was fake. I feel the shame inside of me, the regret, the sadness, the anger. I've been fooled. I so deeply wanted to belong in this group that I acted way out of character. I trusted Jimmy, and I followed the peer pressure of the billionaire and superstars. I broke so many of my own principles of how to make decisions. But at least there's a silver lining. I've been scammed before. The first time I was scammed for about $3,000 when I was 20. A fortune to me back then. That time I felt so ashamed I didn't tell anyone about it for many years. The shame kept haunting me. This time the first thing I did was tell my wife. Later I wrote to tell my parents and brother. Then a group chat with many of my closest friends. I've gotten so much support. My brother wrote me a message that moved me to tears. I read it over and over. I've also cried. I've screamed. I've punched. Then done it all over again. I'm sharing this story partly to integrate it more. Change the emotional experience from shame to anger to something else. I'm not yet sure what it is, but pretty much every feeling is better than shame. I've already felt a lot less shame. The next time you fuck up, think of this story. Remember that we all fuck up sometimes. So, just so you know, Alex, everyone can fall victim to a $1.25 million scam.
Well, not
Could happen to any one of us. That is the lesson, okay?
Man, you're not even capable of being scammed for that much.
I really am not. I am not poor, but I am definitely not rich enough to get scammed out of $1.25 million.
Yeah, you see, this is.
I could trick them into thinking they scammed me out of 1.25 million, maybe.
Scam them into thinking they scam. That's. I mean, you can actually. I think that's.
Yeah, so just the optimistic part here is, Alex, that the good old ways of stealing people's money is still readily available, and it need not be an LLM hacking into your computers.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's look, I think it's cool we're talking about this stuff because if we keep this conversation going, we're gonna track it as it comes. But like, I continue to believe that people are not in the slightest bit prepared for what's coming with AI. Even if AI does not progress one iota from where it is right now, the capabilities of this thing are just kind of scary, I guess. Like, and yeah, they require harnessing, which is what we're doing. And I'm seeing it happen in ways that I've sort of predicted would happen. Let me put it this way. Like, I'm talking about like detailed technical implementations of things. And so I kind of see it coming, and yeah, I can't tell you how it's gonna hit people because that's the part that I'm having a harder time. Like I can tell you how it's gonna be implemented and how its capability is gonna be channeled into the world. It's much harder to figure out what it's going to do to the world, and how the world's going to react, and how that whole system is going to go. But all I know is that it's fundamentally different from everything we've seen so far, and people aren't prepared, not because they are like irresponsible or something. It's just it's very hard to be prepared for the like I was thinking about this the other day. It's like preppers,
Mm-hmm.
who create a stash of like the essentials if the grid goes down, and there's no more food in the supermarkets and whatever stuff like that, right?
Yep.
That is a failure mode that people are preparing for. But I feel like I want to be I don't know what to call it, like a digital prepper or something, preparing for a completely different type of failure mode, that where we're not quite going backwards, if you see what I mean. Like, it's not that like civilization stops existing.
Right.
It's just that it becomes radically different really, really quickly. And it's, I think currently we're in the mode where, how Japanese goods early on and then Chinese goods were seen when they were, starting to scale, where they were just kind of seen as the low quality thing.
Yeah.
Chinese, whatever.
Yeah. The Korean and things like that were Korean cars when they were first coming in were sort of like, lower quality.
Yeah.
Honda was a joke. Hyundai was same sort of idea. But then as, quality improved, they started to outcompete, American cars, and Ford then fell to the wayside.
Yeah, I think a useful model to give people is this. I think people right now are treating this like, the early like Japanese or Korean or Chinese goods, where it's kind of easy to laugh at, not really understanding the scale that is acting behind it. And I fully expect that the next wave, or the wave after that one, is going to be one where people are like, holy shit, this is actually legitimately amazing. Yeah. So,
well, I attached to the space a podcast that I did with our mutual friend Steve Patterson a couple of years back, when ChatGPT was really just hitting the market, and people's first reactions were obviously impressed, which they should have been and still should be. But I obviously didn't predict like everything that's been occurring in the current year, but I think I was ahead of the curve on predicting a lot of the things that humans were not preparing themselves to have to deal with, let's say emotionally speaking, as they were going to have to get used to dealing with something that we were training to mimic our own sensibilities so that we could interface with it. Unexpected vulnerabilities in human nature.
I interact with this stuff more than probably like the vast majority of people you'll ever meet. Like, I literally have the highest grade package in Anthropic and Google and Grok and OpenAI. Right, and I use all of them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't treat them like people. I don't have that instinct at all.
The closest I got to treating it like people was I tied in the transcription on my computer, so I could like try to let's say experiment in vibe coding through speech, so that I could get okay. And all that I wound up doing was yelling at my computer screen, so I felt like a fool because it was doing shit. So that's the closest I got to treating it like a person was yelling at it.
Truth be told, I had an experience with Gemini where it got into the mode where it was insisting something was right when it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I started shouting it to it that it's coping.
Yes, anger is the most readily available emotion that I have given to the LLM so far. I haven't given it any other emotion. I
was like, can't you see you're changing your own arguments as you're going? What the fuck?
do you not see how foolish you are being, you stupid thing?
Yeah, but no, I don't. It was very visible that it kind of slipped into a groove where it was just like gonna be defending its position no matter what.
Well, before we pick some closing out topics here for the thing, give me some of a few of the things that you think you worry about coming down in the near term that people might not be prepared about.
I don't. I mean, I need to think about that.
Okay. All right.
To give you a more complete answer, but what I will say is that I, I think a lot of some layer of work is going to get wiped out. Like basic programming is probably already wiped out pretty much. Like I don't know how young developers get jobs right now. I really don't. And I I'm glimpsing things that I don't know, and like I think there's going to be a very strong bifurcation where people who can be creative and are comfortable innovating and sort of breaking new ground are going to find that somebody just gave them a free super capable team of developers.
Mm-hmm.
um, and the people who are that team of developers who themselves though aren't really like mentally geared towards innovation, they're just kind of like just file a ticket at Jira and I'll get it done for you, man. Are which is like 95% of people, right? Like at least in technology, are going to be in real trouble. And I think that probably goes for a lot of people.
There's going to be
You
a lot
know,
of companies, I think, that are going to go, smaller companies that are going to go underwater because they're not sophisticated, or let's say mature enough or wise enough to use the technology with forethought, and they're going to rush out a whole bunch of product or services that are LLM completed in this nearer term, and it's going to cause a lot of chaos.
This is why you hear me saying what I'm saying to you, which is that I am spending a lot of my time sort of bolting this down to things that are external to itself that can provide some sort of proof of insight, right? Because this thing will argue its corner, right? Whether it is right or wrong. And the thing is, it's not always wrong and it's not always right. And it's very hard to know which is which.
Yeah,
So,
I can say this. I can say this about.
problem.
I don't know. I don't have enough. All of the subscriptions that you do, I would have to switch. I don't have the disposable finances to buy them all. Well, I might, but that would come at a cost to me. But the Claude Code is one that I have the full subscription to. I will say that Claude Code is good enough to get something shitty created that works fairly fast for small concepts. But you really have to hold its hand if you want to do something that is well made and organized, and sort of you have to think things through if you want to get a good product. I would never hand off something Claude Code made, let's say what they call one-shotted, where you do it in one thing, to a client. Like I've seen people do it already, and it scares the crap out of me.
I mean, if people want to see, I made dark2048.com, which is entirely vibe coded. I have not even looked at the code, but it's open source, so you can look at it if you want to.
I will rip it a new one.
It is a version of 2048 that I made. It is particularly suitable for playing when you're trying to put your kids to sleep and you've got your phone and you have to be quiet, but you can't have any light in the room. So it's like a extreme dark mode. Yeah. I like that use case.
It's really
like unbelievably custom to yourself specifically.
Right, but and if you don't care about the quality of code, you're not worried about things getting hacked, and you can navigate a couple bugs.
It doesn't have a server, right? Like it's a static page that you
right,
download
yeah,
any place, and that's
those
all there is to it.
Those sorts of things. The technology is there; it can do that in short order, and that is very, very amazing. Like I do utilize it quite frequently to help me write scripts that I really don't feel like writing because I don't remember all the bash syntax or something like that, right? Like I have it do that all the time.
Again, I'm now writing a thing in a formal theorem, whatever, proof assistant, whatever, that I have no idea about. I I couldn't tell you what the code looks like, but I can tell you what it's doing.
You hope.
And I'm just sort of
You
telling
hope.
it what to do.
You hope you can tell me what it's doing.
Look, it's proven, but I'm.
Well, let's end this quickly on some quick stories here.
Actually, I'll tell you one thing that I
Sure.
am doing, which might give people a sense. So as I was on this trip of like, making real world models and playing with math and whatever, I basically, there's only one math problem, which is like kind of serious math problem that I've ever spent time on in my life, which is called the 17 by 17 problem. It's combinatorics, right? Advanced combinatorics. And since I basically spent 6 months of my life on that problem pretty much full time. Okay. So I was like, well, look, I mean, you wasted all that time.
Now, if you thought it was a waste, you weren't doing it right, Alex. Come on.
No, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't solve it in the end, right? Because some fucker with a stat solver went in there and just produced a solution, and nobody knows why. Anyway, so I was like, well, what if we try to solve it now?
Okay.
15 years later, we are back, baby.
Did you solve it, or are you going to spend 6 months on having the LLM solve it?
Well, I spent a day, and I think it got further than anybody ever has.
Okay.
I don't think we nailed it down because now I've kind of stopped to make this proof assistant work, so I can do it with that.
Okay.
So
you went down that rabbit hole. Okay. Yes.
But if it does work, then I mean the concrete progress it did make was incredible, and it just started going into some fields of math that I have no idea about. But it legitimately seemed to be making progress as like I basically had one LLM play the judge, and the other LLMs attempt to sort of pretend to be like math Olympiad contestants effectively. So there was like some level of cross checking going on. And I do think it made a ton of progress. I just want to tie it all down. So
Gotcha.
the result is better. But long story short, I mean, it was shocking how like it is as good as math as it is at speaking, and humans are really good at speaking.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious about the 17 by 17 problem. Never heard of it. I'd have to look into it. But every time I throw certain math problems that I have been toying with on the back burner, it either only gives me stuff that I've already done myself, or it gives me something horribly. Okay.
And I will farm it out to the top editions of all the LLMs because I think this is actually to do with I don't try Gemini 2.5 anymore. I just try DeepThink. Right? I don't like the regular GPT-5 is not very good. Pro is a whole other level, and same is for Grok. Like Grok Heavy is a whole other level. So I would say, if you have something well written, send it to me, and we can report back next week how well it did.
Well, well written is now a qualifier because boy, are my mathematical scratch notes for my eyes only.
Well, then Okay. Right.
Yeah. So to tie off this this space today with just the last couple of news here, quick here. We talked about the U.S. buying 10% of Intel last week, and we have here that U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders favors Trump plan to take stake in Intel and other chip makers. So, just so you know, if you're talking about the United States being the emblem of capitalism throughout the world, the only socialist in the United States Senate, openly socialist person, the United States Senate is approving of that plan there. So that's pretty good. And NBC News, U.S. could take stakes in more companies, Trump advisor says. The U.S. government could take equity stakes in more companies, potentially through an American sovereign wealth fund, according to one of President Donald Trump's top economic advisors. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett made the comments Monday, days after the United States took an early 10% stake in Intel. The government secured a piece of the semiconductor maker with money intended for grants as part of the CHIPS and Science Act passed during the Biden administration. Speaking about the new Intel position, Hassett told CNBC it's like a down payment on a sovereign wealth fund, which many countries have. Governments throughout Europe, Asia, and Middle East use such funds to invest in companies and other financial assets. The federal government has taken ownership at stake private companies before, but only under extraordinary circumstances, such as during the global financial crisis of 2008. Hassett said the Intel investment was a very, very special circumstance because of the massive amount of CHIPS Act spending that was coming Intel's way. He added, so I'm sure that at some point there will be more transactions, if not in this industry, other industries. The CHIPS Act was established as a way for the government to provide financing and capital to foreign and domestic companies that manufacture semiconductors and related products in the United States. The Americans and the American economy received the benefit of more than $200 billion in private capital investments since the act was signed into law, according to the Council on Foreign Relations. Many companies also announced plans to create new U.S. manufacturing and construction jobs. Hassett said the money was going out and disappearing into the ether. So there's that. We're going to buy more companies up or get donations of stock, so to speak. And then moving on to some tariff information. End of de minimis shipping could be biggest Trump tariff of all for many U.S. businesses. At the stroke of midnight, this was the 29th, 92% of all U.S. cargo shipments and up to 4 million packages daily lost their duty-free status when President Donald Trump's removal of the de minimis exemption for low-value trade. Any imported goods sent through the International Postal Network that are valued at or under $800 will now be subject to applicable duties. While the winners and losers on the retail landscape and among consumers are debated, customs experts are warning the troubles facing small to medium-sized businesses that relied on the duty-free exemption are just beginning and will be significant. When I think about the de minimis change, the message is clear. Tariffs are now universal regardless of value, said Nunzio de Filippis, licensed customs broker and CEO of CargoTrans. Every package counts. That's a major change on how global e-commerce has operated for the last decade. The postal carrier or qualified party, e.g. UPS, Royal Mail, La Poste, decides how many duties are collected on packages moving through the postal stream, must collect those duties from shippers or recipients and remit them to the U.S. Customs. The carriers have two methods to choose from, either a percentage of the country's tariff rate, ad valorem, or a flat rate per package fee, De Filippis explained. With the flat rate, there are three tiers: $80 if the IEEPA tariff rate, the trade duties put into effect by Trump using emergency economic powers, is under 16%, $160 if it's between 16% and 15%, and $200 if it's above 25%. So those changes are coming. The next news story, real quick succession. Washington Post: shoppers met with canceled orders, delays as the de minimis exemption ends. Consumers, shippers, and small businesses at home and abroad are in flux as an exemption that allowed low-cost goods to enter the United States duty-free came to an end. For nearly a century, de minimis rule allowed merchandise worth $800 or less to bypass import tax. But it expired on 12:01 a.m. Friday, meaning such shipments are now subject to an additional 10 to 50% levy that coincides with the tariff rate of the country's origin, or a flat rate of $80 to $200, depending on which option the merchant chooses. The change has caused widespread uncertainty over how the levies will be collected. So there you go. And the Wall Street Journal: 6 months into tariffs, businesses have no idea how to price anything, which is a bit of an extreme headline. How much do stuff cost? How much should a copper bathtub cost? Clifford Thompson is trying to figure that out. Until now, the hand-hammered tubs his family-owned business imports from India have carried a suggested retail price of about $3,300. President Trump's 50% tariff on copper imports and steep levies on goods from India are forcing Thompson traders to rethink that price, but settling on a new one isn't easy. Just this week, levies on Indian goods doubled to 50%, days before an appeals court late Friday struck down the legal basis for at least part of those tariffs, a ruling likely heading for the Supreme Court to review. The North Carolina company's negotiation with big box retailers over even small price increases are maddeningly slow, and Thompson, the company's president, isn't certain what inflation-weary customers will expect or how much competitors plan to charge. So everything's good on the tariff front, Alex.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
The thing is that I think that I have a strong sense that the Supreme Court is not going to side with Trump on the tariffs.
Okay. All right.
Mostly because I think he's in the wrong legally. Like, I have no opinion on whether he should or shouldn't be allowed to do it. My understanding of the Constitution is that he's not. And so on some level, I'm wondering if he's in a rush to basically extract as much as possible before that happens. Or there's another angle here, which is that there's this a bill that Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal have been pushing, which essentially sets at the discretion of the president tariffs on any country buying oil from Russia. Now, all countries buy oil from Russia, which in a way is operating as a backdoor for the president at his discretion to put tariffs on any country he wants. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a backdoor there for him if he plays his cards right or wrong, depending on how you feel about it, to kind of get a backdoor authorization from Congress to do this under some bullshit excuse. But other than that, it really looks like he's gonna lose the case, or at least it looks like he's not. He doesn't have the authority, and even if he did, he's not helping himself with the statements he's making. Let's put it this way. But then again, what's new with Trump?
That's very, very true.
Yeah. Anyway, but so that's going to be a wrinkle on the whole tariff situation. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess the other thing to say is that I guess on some level, I wasn't sure how long this whole globalized supply chain thing was gonna go. And so, in a way, my view is that, yes, there's gonna be disruption, but better sooner than later, in a way.
Okay.
So that's maybe why you see me be so like unperturbed. It's, okay, you can't import hammered copper bathtubs from India. I suppose the people who really need hammered bathtubs from India are gonna really suffer from this. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, well,
Well, let's just be careful. If people say that they can't afford bread and you have to say, well, they can eat cake instead, just be careful, okay?
No. This is a comment specific to hand hammered copper.
Okay, all right, okay. All right. Just making sure that we have some boundaries here when we make those comments. Okay. Yeah. Well, since you chose an in-person dinner instead of the $100 specific value, you'll have to pick when we meet up for a dinner then, Alex.
Alrighty.
All right. Everyone have a dumb week. A good dumb week. Take care.